Hello and welcome to tonight's full council meeting. Agenda item 1, announcements by the Mayor and Chief Exec. Chief Exec, do you have any announcements?
No, ma'am.
No, I've got a few. So, can I just start off by first of all asking Councillor Burke to come to the front, as I'd like to present him with his commemorative yearbook from his mayoral year 23 to 24. Thank you. I'd also like to announce that Kirklees parks and green spaces have once again been recognised amongst the country's best parks with the International Quality Mark and Parks and Green Spaces Award, which is known as the Green Flag Award. It has been awarded to the following parks, so that's Beaumont Park in Crosland Moor, Greenhead Park in Huddersfield, Crowness Park in Dewsbury, Wilton Park in Batley, Almondbury Hill Fort up in Castle Hill, Huddersfield, and Oakwell Hall and Country Park in Birstall. I also want to mention that East Byley has also won a Green Flag for Community Space Award, so well done and congratulations to them all. So during my term in office, the one thing I want to be able to do as Mayor is highlight the fantastic work that is happening all across Kirklees. So I do have a few more mentions in regards to the events that I have recently attended and have really stood out for the work that they are doing in our communities across the borough. So I'd like to give a big shout out to Project Search, who for many years Project Search in collaboration has transformed the employment prospects of young people aged 18 and 24 with learning disabilities and autism. So I want to thank those who contribute towards the scheme, the managers, the mentors in the council and the on-site training teams and the steering groups. So there's 2 Project Search groups based here in Kirklees, one in Dewsbury, which I understand the Deputy Mayor had the pleasure of visiting, and one in Huddersfield, which I was recently at. So congratulations and again, well done to them. I also want to mention I was recently invited to the BBC Radio Leeds Make a Difference Awards, and I'm pleased to say that various community groups from Kirklees were nominated across 3 different categories. So we had 4 groups nominated in 3 categories, so there could only be 3 winners, unfortunately. I'm sure if you could give a double award, we would have had all 4. But I'd like to congratulate Shelley Hedgehogs for their award, Benjamin Carpenter for his, and Team Serenity for theirs. I will also be looking to call a break prior to 7 p.m. So by 7 p.m, if you've looked in your agendas, we will need to start the key discussion item by 7 p.m. So if we haven't naturally arrived to the key agenda item by 7 or just a little before, I will pause the meeting wherever in the agenda we are, call for a break, a 15-minute break at around 6:45, and then when we return to the chamber, we'll be returning to go straight to the key discussion, which will last for an hour, and we will then come back to the rest of the agenda if need be. Is everybody happy with that? I'd also like to pass on our condolences as a council to Councillor Armour, who I understand has sadly lost his wife. So if that can be noted, and if we could please pass on condolences from myself and I'd say everybody here in the chamber. Thank you. Agenda item 2, apologies for absence. Are there any apologies for absence? Councillor Ahmed.
Apologies from Councillor Paul Moore, and Councillor Adams and man will be arriving a bit late. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Richard Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Apologies from Councillors Martin Bolton and Bill Armour. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sokol.
Madam Mayor, no apology from Labour Group. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, minutes of the previous meeting. I move that the minutes of the meeting of Council held on the 17th of July 24 be approved as a correct record. Is that seconded?
That's seconded, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Smage. Please vote by a show of hands. That is carried. Agenda item 4, declarations of interests. Members who have any disclosable pecuniary interests which would prevent them from discussing or voting on any item should disclose their interests now. Are there any interests to be declared? No. Can I remind any members who have declared an interest to complete the form and submit it to the clerk by the end of the meeting? Thank you. Agenda item 5, petitions from members of the council. Are there any petitions? Councillor Joshua Shade.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a petition to hand in on behalf of myself, Councillor Smage and Councillor Thompson and all the undersigned. With this petition, we are calling on the Council to cancel any proposal to close the Birstall Waste and Recycling Centre on Nab Lane, and we are calling for a debate in the Council chambers on the matter. We believe that before any final decision is made, a full public consultation and council debate is necessary to explore all potential solutions, including alternatives to closure. It is essential that voices of local residents are heard and considered in this matter. We urge the Council to act in the interest of our community and hold a full formal debate on the closure of the Nab Lane tip at the earliest opportunity and or cancel any proposal to close the Birstall Waste and Recycling Centre. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shade. Councillor Bellamy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a petition also to hand in. The petition requests that Kirklees Council ensure that the recycling centre at Meltham remains open 7 days a week to continue supporting the community's waste management needs and environmental sustainable affairs. There's 1,789 signatures and more coming in, which I will pass on as soon as I get them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bellamy. Are there any further petitions? So, in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 9.3, I direct that the subject matter of the petitions be referred to the appropriate Service Director for investigation. Agenda item 6, deputations and petitions. Deputations and petitions from the members of the public, and I understand we have 2 deputations this evening. The first one, so can I please invite Soraya Patel to present their deputation? Welcome to the meeting, Soraya. You have 5 minutes to present your deputation to the Council.
Hello everyone. I stand before you today on the 1-year and 2-week anniversary of the closure of our beloved sports centre. A community hub, an institution that was once a bit, not more than just a building. It was the beating heart of our community. Its closure has left a profound void on already a deeply challenged town. Since 2010, our community has endured significant decline, marked by relentless cuts of essential services. We've lost youth centres, show start centres, grassroots organisations and so much more. These were not just facilities, they were lifelines, especially for our young people who now face the stark reality with fewer spaces to learn, gather and grow. The sports centre was unique in that it helped to bridge these gaps. It was a place where outreach work by CAMS was conducted, where local martial arts, gymnastics and football clubs flourished, where youth schemes provided crucial support, especially during the school holidays. But since the closure, of this centre, the decline has accelerated, and statistics speak for themselves. Youth crime has risen alarmingly, with every school in Dewsbury having faced a lockdown due to antisocial behaviour in the area. 3 of which involved knives. Just 12 months ago, I stood here warning of these dangers. I recounted how students told me they felt unsafe in the park, sharing an incident involving a crime, a knife. That sports centre was their sanctuary. Tragically, our worst fears have now been realised, and we are living living the consequences of inaction. Beyond the human toll, the economic impact has also been devastating. The town centre, once vibrant and full of life, is now a shadow of its former self. Retail shops are closing or preparing to close, and that's due to the lack of footfall the sports centre generated. In our efforts to address this, the campaign team met with former leader Cathy Scott and presented her with the independent surveys, which we obtained through Freedom of Information requests. These reports are crucial, and I really hope that the new leadership has reviewed them thoroughly and seen what the reports state. And I'm going to quote. The reports state for the dry side, no works or further investigations pertaining to potential issues with rack panels are deemed necessary. Open it already. Regarding the wet side, the advice is very similar, noting that the fractured panels above Area 17 should be subject to temporary propping works. These are not unachievable challenges. The path to reopening is clear, and we have the will to act. As a committee, we are here to ask who is responsible for overseeing the reopening of the sports centre. Are you considering the independent surveyors' reports for the dry side, and which will require minimal input, and the wet side? And what's the timetable for this? The community requires and deserves transparency. We cannot afford another year of inaction. Every day that passes without that sports centre is another day our community suffers. I urge you to act swiftly and decisively. Reopen our sports centre, restore our community's heart, and help us begin the process of rebuilding what we've already lost. Thank you.
Thank you, Soraya. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Soraya. I hope you don't mind me using your first name. So thank you very much for coming along this evening and sharing your passion and enthusiasm for Dewsbury Sports Centre with us all this evening. I'm sure we're very impressed by your presentation. As you well know, the roof of the wet side is made of rack, and when we found out about this, we took the very difficult decision to close the building. And this was a very difficult decision. We went into early evening to do this. We'd spent a lot of time. And in the interest of health and safety, we decided that was the best thing to do at that moment in time. A report is currently being prepared into the possible future options for the Dewsbury Sports Centre. Once this has been completed and signed off by Cabinet and the senior leadership team, we will engage with the ward members and MP prior to its publication. Once that has happened, the report will follow the Council standard procedures. Given the fact that we haven't briefed the ward members and the MP yet, there's little else to add at this moment. So can I thank you once again for taking the time to come along this evening and representing the residents of Dewsbury so eloquently and passionately. Thank you.
Sorry, there's no supplementary, so thank you for your response, Councillor Turner, and thank you, Soraya, for attending. Thank you. Thank you. So for the second petition, can I please invite Chris Moore to present their deputation? welcome to the meeting. Chris, you have 5 minutes to present your deputation to the council.
My name is Chris Moore. I'm the chairman of the Cleckheaton and Spenborough Town Hall Group. I'm also deputy chairman of the Cleckheaton and Spen University of the Third Age. So I'm here today representing many Kirklees constituents across multiple wards to encourage the council to reopen the town hall as soon as possible. A little history. In 1885, the need for a civic building big enough to cater for large meetings and public functions became a necessity following the Redistribution of Seats Act in the Spen Valley Parliamentary Division of the West Riding. And it's strange how history repeats itself, because the building is still the only town hall in the new parliamentary constituency of the Spen Valley again, which came into being in October 2023. The town hall was also listed Grade 2 by Historic England in 1980 for its architectural and historic interest. This means the building is significant at a national level. The closure of any town hall has a disproportionate effect on both the community as well as the town centre that it serves. Its closure almost a year ago today has been a huge blow and a loss felt by thousands of individuals who made regular use of the town hall, as well as the many organisations who base their activities there. In fact, it was the best and most used of all town halls by community groups in Kirklees, serving the people of Cleckheaton, Gomersall, Birkenshaw, East Bailey, Liversidge, Hetmondwike, Birstall, Scholes, Driglington, Hunsworth and Murfield. Another serious impact has been on local businesses. The Cleckheaton Chamber of Commerce noted a significant drop in footfall in the centre shortly after the town hall closed, and it has never recovered. So I'm sure you can appreciate the significant negative effect it has had on so many people's everyday lives, on both individuals and businesses. The uses of the town hall were many. Amateur and dramatic societies, many of them, they all said the stage is one of the best in the whole of Yorkshire. Local dance schools, Musica Kirklees, the West Yorkshire Fire Brigade Band, the Royal British Legion, the U3A. Membership was over 600 at the town hall. It's less than half that now. Spen Valley Scouts, the Folk Festival, a national event, it's gone because their main venue was closed. And it goes on. Kirklees also made use of the town hall. Housing officers were based there for many years. Paying of rates and other council administration activities were based there. The local councillors themselves here today held their regular surgeries in the town hall, and the Citizens Advice Bureau was based there. And this isn't an exhaustive list. Kirklees will have a much more comprehensive records than I have. And not only that, there are many more possible future income-generating opportunities for the town hall, such as an art gallery, local history museum. Spen Valley has such a rich history. Small businesses and room hire, sports events, wedding and funeral venue, cafe, co-working and shared office space, function room hire, a banking hub, a police contact point. Where is this? In summary, there is a swell feeling of concern from the community and businesses about the future of the town hall. We as a group cannot update or respond to everybody's individual requests or questions on what is happening and what the plans the council have. As such, we will shortly be creating a dedicated Facebook group to allow all your constituents to join, to have a voice, and we will be inviting all of you as councillors to also be members, as well as the local media to join. Now, we understand money is difficult. It's difficult for all councils at the moment, and so we would like to offer our help to you. We want to work with you. We feel we can add value in a number of ways. One, when the town hall is reopened, we can ensure all income-generating user communities return as soon as possible, so as to quickly create a regular revenue flow to help cover the cost of running the town hall. We would also encourage all community use to be on a chargeable basis. And three, We will help in promoting its use as an events centre of excellence. Both the stage arrangement and the dance floor are of a professional standard. So you'll never be on your own with this. We as a community group will continue to support you. And that's a particular message to Councillor Turner. We will support you on the revenue generating side. Finally, the Town Hall has been an important part of the Spen Valley community's history for over 140 years and is still an integral part of its future, bringing much needed services to thousands. We would therefore like to invite the council members to come and visit the Town Hall. It would be so good to see you. It would be so good for you to see the magnificence of the Town Hall. If you haven't already, please come and visit us and the town centre. Let's remember that resilient communities are those with strong connections and a strong community spirit. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Can I invite Councillor Turner to respond, please?
Good evening, Mr Moore. Thank you very, very much for coming along this evening and sharing your very obvious passion for Clockheaton Town Hall. And I apologise that this is a very similar response to the one you heard earlier, because we're in a very similar, slightly similar position. So as you're well aware, there were several issues with the building structure. And in the light of this, we commissioned a full and very detailed report into the condition of the building. This is now complete, and as I have said, is very detailed, and the full report runs to about 500 pages with all its appendices. The relevant service director and I have a meeting with Ward Council on the 1st of October to discuss the contents of the report and the options contained within it. So I'm sure you'll understand that it will be remiss of me to discuss the report this evening prior to that meeting. We have to brief the council ward members first. Once that meeting has taken place, we will be happy at the relevant point to share the report and its contents. As before, the report and the decisions for the Town Hall will follow due process of the Council. Once again, thank you very much for coming along and talking to us this evening. And I have been in there many, many times, and you're right, there's some fantastic parts of it, isn't there? It's lovely. If you want me to come again, yes. I'll come again. Yes, how's that?
You're not on your own with this, with the money side of it, so please don't dismiss that offer.
No, I'll come again. I don't mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Thank you, Chris, for attending. Are there any public petitions?
No questions next.
No. No public petitions. We will move on to agenda item 7, which is public question time. So 4 public questions have been received and responses have been circulated. Supplementary questions will be permitted if the person who submitted the questions is present at this meeting. And my understanding is that Helen is. So could I please invite Helen Plaskett to ask the supplementary question to question 1.
Okay, so to Councillor Addy, sorry, just need a focal point. So, Councillor Addy, families were informed of the potential new operators for Castle Grange and Claremont last week. There was a handout shared at the meeting, and it stated that there was 2 care homes for elderly persons, etc., etc.
Sorry, Helen, can I just stop you there? Is that the original question?
Yeah.
So that's already been asked, and you've received an answer for it?
So you only want a supplementary?
We just want a supplementary now, please, if that's
fine.
okay. Thank you.
So supplementary questions. So I'd like to address this to all ward councillors, cabinet members and Councillor Addy. This is in response to the answer that you gave me. So the experience and quality of private care providers, despite the answers given by Councillor Addy, are actually in dispute. We know this because we have many current residents and families in both Claremont and Castle Grange that have had very bad experiences prior to arriving with us from private providers. So my question is, to everybody, what will your record as individual councillors be? Will it show you stood aside, or will it evidence your questions, your thoroughness in demanding guarantees when dementia care was being privatised? Will your legacy be families travelling hundreds of miles to see their loved ones, or following a visit to a local private care home leaving distressed because the specialist care we had, we gave away? My plea to you is not to sit back and use the excuse of cabinet decisions, but instead join our fight, collaborate and find solutions to keep and continue improving Kirklees Council's service to its community.
Thank
so
you.
Anybody can answer that question.
Thank you.
Can they not? Okay. Councillor Addy.
I'm going to invite Councillor Addy to respond. Thank you.
Hi Helen, I know it's a terribly anxious time when there's disruption in the care of your loved ones. I've personally experienced it, so I do understand how important it is to you. But in the current climate, we are not able to continue as we discussed and as was decided at the Cabinet meeting in March, and the future is to look for transfer into the independent sector, but we will be looking for specialists in dementia care. They will be quality providers. We will not move forward until we find a quality provider for this, and we will be consulting you as soon as the meeting has been held, and if we get the go-ahead to follow this through, we will be discussing with you as relatives individually about the needs and making sure that they can be met.
Okay, thank you for that response. Okay, so my complementary question for question 2 relates to the final statement in the answer. Just give people time to find that if they need to, if they're showing interest. Thank you. Can I ask for the number of current, and I'd also like this to be a freedom of information question, can I ask for the number of current residential dementia places within Kirklees, both private and council, and how many dementia residential places are currently being commissioned out of area by Kirklees? And again, that's a freedom of information request as well.
Thank you, Helen. Before I invite Councillor Addy to respond, this is just going to be an answer to your supplementary. A freedom of information request will have to be put in separately.
It will be, but
okay.
I'm just letting everybody know
That's
that
fine.
will be happening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Addy?
Hi Helen, I can't give you an exact figure, so we will be providing that later, but I can assure you that there is capacity in Kirklees at the present time, and referring to the concerns of in and out of area. This happens generally when people move into a Kirklees residential home from outside the area because their loved ones live here, and the same thing happens out. It's a to and fro experience. But there is capacity, and it is the area that care homes are moving into. So that's where the capacity is going and where the demand is going. So we have got spaces in Kirklees. There are places for people to go.
Thank you for that answer.
Thank you, Councillor Addy, and thank you, Helen. Could I invite Avalon Rowling to ask the supplementary questions to questions 3 and 4?
Thank you, councillors. My supplementary question to question 1 is, one of the ways that private care homes are able to run at a lower cost is by using medication and restricting the free movement of residents within the safety of their own homes. This drastically reduces the quality and dignity of life of vulnerable residents. Are you, Councillor Addy, personally happy to prioritise costs above the quality of life?
Can I invite Councillor Addy to respond, please?
That is a very complicated legislative thing. I don't know of this situation. I do know that when people are distressed with dementia, they do have medication for their benefit. If you have evidence of homes that are abusing this situation, clearly that's an issue that needs to be taken somewhere else. The home providers that we will be looking at to move our homes to transfer to, will be quality providers and will work as Kirklees does currently, and as I expect all care homes in Kirklees and anywhere to work within the law and within that quality of life statement for people. But please, if you've got evidence elsewise of that kind of behaviour, that needs to be reported elsewhere, and I'll be happy to take that outside of this chamber.
The response to question 2 didn't address the point about evictions that take place in private homes, which is what happens when, in some of these homes, when people's funds run dry. What will Councillor Addy do to assure herself that vulnerable people will not be evicted from these homes if they are transferred into private ownership when their funds run out?
All individuals are assessed on their financial ability, and when their money reaches a point below that, the council pays the top-up to the set fees as per all residents of dementia care homes across Kirklees, not just our own, all those in private sector currently.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Addy, and thank you for the questions, Avalon and Helen. We will now... We will now move on to agenda item 8, which is the West Yorkshire minutes of the West Yorkshire Combined Authority. These are to receive for information. The minutes are here for noting. Are there any comments or questions regarding the minutes? Councillor John Lawson.
Okay, good. Just a question really. It's perhaps not in the minutes, but it will have been in some of the minutes that have been previously, so I feel at liberty to ask this question. At the end of August, FE Week reported that Wyker had abandoned its latest adult education tender, withdrawn its budget of £7 million. Some successful bidders to the tender had already employed staff and enrolled students, and now face broken contracts and expect further delays of 5 months. Has the leader been briefed on this and its effects on Kirklees, both any contractors and enrolled students? And how much money has been used to ensure suppliers have not lost out through this obviously flawed procurement process? So what has Wyker paid in penalties? Do we have any understanding on that?
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Councillor Pattison, would you like to respond?
Yes, I will respond. Yes, it's on. Yeah, sorry. I'm there now. Yes, I mean, that was an unfortunate misdirection of funds, etc. Well, not misdirection of funds. It was a misdirection that led to the funding having to be with the contracts being withdrawn. I have been briefed briefly on it, I have to say, so I haven't got all the detail that you're asking about in terms of the effect that has had on individual suppliers or within Kirklees. I can certainly get that for you. We are looking, of course, for contracts to be awarded in the future, and we have got a very good reputation in Kirklees for that community adult learning, and we have spent it wisely and well in the past, and I hope that will continue, and we are looking forward to additional funds as well from Wyker for that very purpose. So I'll have to get you the detail in terms of impact, I'm afraid. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pattison. Do we have any further questions? Councillor Bellamy?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just into relation to the corridor improvement programme for Ownfirth Town Centre, up to 10.2 million from the Combined Authority for a 10.5 million project. I'm just wondering if at some stage we could have an update of exactly what is happening and maybe where the other 0.3 million is coming from.
Thank you.
Councillor Bellamy. Councillor Patterson, would you like to respond?
I will ask Eric Firth, from the Transport, or Moses from Holmfirth to answer that. Thank you.
Councillor Crook.
Thank you, Councillor Bellamy. So the Holmfirth Town Access Scheme, as you know, is a long-awaited scheme which is funded through the West Yorkshire Combined Authority. I will have to get back to you on the exact reason why there's a difference in the figures there, 10.3 and 10.5 million pounds. I'm not 100% sure at this point in time, but other details on that scheme are available, and it is all online on the Holmfirth Blueprint page. So digging into the details should be possible for you as well and for members of the public. But if you just drop me an email with the specific question, I'll find out that detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. If there's no further questions, we'll move on to agenda item 9, which is the Councillor Cooper.
My question is about the CRSTS Safe Roads programme, and it says that £925,000, nearly £1 million, has been given for safe roads. Now, I'd just like to know where that money is being spent and how it is being prioritised, because we have a Vision Zero strategy with not a lot of money attached to it. So I'm quite interested to know where that money is being spent, because I could help you spend it.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Is anyone going to respond to that?
Page 16 of the agenda papers. Third bullet point down, third paragraph. CRSTS
Councillor Firth, are you going to respond yet?
Yes. I will respond, but not today. I will actually... There's that much detail in how the split is with our local authorities. I will find out chapter and verse for you, Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Councillor Firth. So we'll now move on to agenda item 9, which is the Kirklees Environment Strategy. I understand Councillor Munir Ahmed will be presenting that. You have 10 minutes for your presentation.
Madam Mayor, Council members, today I present to you a collective commitment to people, partners and the planet. I invite you to consider and approve our new environment strategy, Everyday Life, which will act as a beacon guiding us towards a more resilient, inclusive, thriving and greener Kirklees. As one of our 4 top-tier strategies for the Council, the document will work towards achieving the 24-25 Council Plan priority of continuing to deliver a greener, healthier Kirklees and address the challenges of climate change. In Kirklees, we know that the environment really matters, and without a thriving, healthy environment, all our other plans we have for a better future for Kirklees cannot succeed. This is because the environment underpins everything. It is everyday life. It is our home. It gives us clean air, safe place to relax and resources of our businesses and jobs. By improving the environment in Kirklees, this strategy strives to enhance people's lives and foster healthy, happy, better connected communities. Through this strategy, the Council is committed to making the environment a priority for the district. And by working in partnerships with a clear vision, we want Kirklees to be seen as the leader on green issues with the environment, having a seat at the table in decision-making, big and small. The strategy, it's important to note that the strategy is a high-level framework, co-designed with over 1,000 residents, hundreds of partners, and indeed, you as councillors, both past and present, on multiple occasions. This has been an ongoing process and not just a one-off engagement activities. Officers have done initial engagements, made changes, and then returned to the group to validate these changes. This involved officers going to each of the political party groups, meeting twice alongside and responding to comments and scrutiny. Officers have also offered meetings to the newly formed political parties since the May election to ensure that the councillors are aware of this strategy. As a result of this extensive co-design process, this strategy is ultimately a collection of stakeholders and partners' ambitions and aspirations for Kirklees, which we as a council have collated into a framework for action. This framework has been structured into 4 pillars of ambition: closing the loop, Kirklees on the move, bringing it home, and nurturing nature. Now, these pillars represent the areas and activities within Kirklees that people told us mattered the most to them during the co-design process. They are the areas that put most pressure on our environment and where action and change would have the biggest impact. A unique aspect of this environment strategy is our 3 always-on priorities, which are designed to make sure that we don't lose sight of the bigger picture. That the environment agenda is in fact about people and improving people's quality of life. And as a result, all aspects of the strategy will also consider sustainable economic development. How we support growth that's good for us and the planet, resilient futures. How we protect most vulnerable from the impact of a changing environment, and the environment for all. How we support fairness and a voice for all. So how will we deliver and indeed resource this strategy, which is the key question, exactly as we have developed it together, supported by the plans, the policies and the strategies that will sit beneath it. This strategy will be delivered through partnerships, and we're launching a partnership pledge, inviting organisations, businesses and residents to voluntarily pledge what they can to help support and deliver our collective ambition. We currently have 10 organisations with Kirklees who have pledged to this strategy ahead of its approval, demonstrating the desire of our partners for this strategy to be implemented and its impact. We thank these organisations for their support. Budget and resource challenges are a critical issue for local authorities. Delivering this agenda will require public and private investment, coordinating existing resources and actions across partners and within the council, maximising our collective resources, use and community capital. We will also seek external funding, and we've been successful in the process of obtaining around £14 million in over £14 million in external funding to deliver climate and environmental projects across Kirklees in recent years. The ambition of this strategy will provide further opportunity and impetus to build the success. Just wanted to also go through some of the award recognitions which Kirklees Council has had. And I'm delighted that Kirklees has been recognised in its leading efforts in environment and climate action by winning the Green Council of the Year over the past few years. The dedication and hard work of our council officers have been recognised through several prestigious awards, laying a strong foundation for achieving the ambition outlined in our environment strategy. Since declaring the climate emergency in 2019, we've taken significant steps towards becoming a net zero and climate ready by 2038, a core aspect of our environment strategy. Our efforts have been acknowledged by the Royal Meteorological Society with the 22 Award for Impact, which distinguishes the proactive measures we've taken to address climate-related challenges. We received an A grade for environmental reporting from the CDP for 2023, making us one of the only 119 global, the word is global, cities to be named on the Climate Action Leaders list. So I'm also thrilled to announce that we have been honoured as the Green Council of the Year for 2024 by the Political Purpose Award. This accolade is a testament to the outstanding work of our officers and substantial amounts of external funding that they have secured to deliver environmental projects. So to close, Madam Mayor, I will say this is in every decision we make, let's prioritise the environment. Let's be a district where actions speak louder than words, a place where sustainable Sustainability and the environment isn't an abstract concept, but a collaborative action, an integral part of our everyday life. I support the recommendations for the adoption of the environment strategy, everyday life. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ahmed. Are you moving that, Councillor Ahmed?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor.
Have the right, please.
Councillor Crook. Thank you. Are there any comments on this matter? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ahmed, for your introduction. And I'd just like to start by thanking Robert and the team for pulling this work together. There's a lot of information in here. I'm broadly supportive, but I do have worries about the clarity involved. When you read this, it talks about 12 headline targets, 4 themes, 31 objectives, and 3 always-on priorities, which in itself is like a bundle of things. And how do people, or how do individuals looking at this actually work out, well, which are the key priorities? Which are the things that will be progressed first, or in what order? How is that order determined? It's not clear from this strategy. I also worry that some of the things feel more like aspirations than targets, because there's no detail about how we're going to achieve them, and some of them do feel as though they're probably not easily achievable. I'm not now going to not be able to find the one I want, but there is one about our housing, where I think it sets a target of 2038 to have all houses with I can't remember the wording, an appropriate energy rating. Well, to do that for all of our houses across Kirklees, which we don't have control over, I'm not sure how the council is going to do that. That feels aspirational to me, rather than a target or an objective or priority. And that's where my worry lies. There's nothing in here to say this isn't good or we shouldn't be doing any of that. But I do worry about how it translates into practice and how easy it is for anybody to follow any of that. I'm also disappointed with the low numbers of people who contributed to this. There were just over 1,000 members of the public. And when you think how important the climate is to a lot of our population, the fact that we couldn't find more than 1,000 people to actually comment on this suggests perhaps we didn't get it right in terms of the consultation and in the way in which we consulted, because you would have hoped there'd be an awful lot more people who had a view on this than perhaps 1,000 people across the whole of Kirklees. So that worries me a little. I'm also concerned about some of the statements and assumptions made in here about public transport, about everybody's going to be within 500 kilometres a bus, or there'll be 1 bus per hour in that community. Well, some of my communities do have 1 bus per hour during the middle of the day. But that's not great if you're working, because if there isn't a bus that you can get home in the evening, you're not going to use that public transport. So it's easy to make these statements without actually checking the detail that sit behind them. So I have some concerns around that. Broadly, you know, this is directionally, obviously in the right direction. There are a couple of comments in here that I recall making when I contributed to this, so I'm pleased to see they've made it through to the strategy. But yeah, I do have questions about whether this is a bit too aspirational. There's too many confusing priorities, objectives, always on priorities and things to be clear about what which are the first 5 things we need to do or we're going to aim for. So I think it could be clearer, but it's certainly directionally in the right direction. Thank you, Mrs. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would echo Councillor Taylor's comments in respect of the work that the officers have done to pull this together. As always, it's very well presented, although I do have some broad misgivings about some of the woolly targets. I just want to pick up, if I can, on closing the loop and what we've done. And there are 3 projects mentioned in there which are close to all of our hearts, I think. I'd just like some further context on what the council's involvement has been in helping and supporting these projects, either in the past or what they plan to do ongoing, and what learnings have come from any engagement with these projects, which we're going to take forward to encourage and nurture future projects from third-party and voluntary organisations. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I move on, can I just remind members to just have one meeting in the chamber, please? I just think it's very disrespectful for the people that are up speaking. So please save your conversations for break time. Councillor Cooper.
And congratulations from me on achieving Green Council of the Year. Excellent. Really good. Reminds me of a time when Kirklees was winning lots of awards for its green initiatives back around between 2007 and 2011 when Greens had a certain amount of influence over the minority administration at the time. And we won awards then for insulating 50,000 homes with a £21 million programme. That was a private sector housing. So thousands and thousands of people benefited from that and are still benefiting it from today in low fuel bills. We had an award-winning renewable energy scheme which was funded through a second charge on the property, where hundreds of private sector households had solar panels installed in the home with no upfront costs, which they would recover when they sold their property. We had a renewable energy fund for council buildings, which helped reduce council fuel bills at the time. We still have some of the solar panels now on many council buildings. We did the first council electric vehicle. There was quite a gap between we saw the second, but that was a result of a green initiative from there. And so you look at that and you think, what are people seeing on the ground? What are the things that people actually see that tangibly affects and reduces the carbon emissions for individuals? And I think that's quite important for us, because that engagement with people is really good. We're doing a lot of engagement with tree planting projects. That's a positive thing that I and my colleagues have been involved in, and lots of that's being installed in the Newsham ward. Big concern about the partnership pledges, really. The partnership pledge to me sounds like, tell us what you're doing and we'll call it a partnership pledge. And so that's my worry with it. Are we actually making things happen, or are they telling us what they're doing and we're sort of claiming it? It's a bit like the Mayor's 1,000 Jobs Green Challenge, isn't it? Where the Mayor went out and said, oh, is anything you do in a green job? We'll claim that. So nothing actually happened very much from the combined authority that generated those jobs. It was other people telling the Mayor what they were doing. And I worry about things like retrofitting of council properties. We had 8 properties that were installed with super retrofitted properties, which Keir Starmer came and visited and said, look, and he showed it him, look, Keir, this is great, isn't it? No plan for replication. It just seemed like hundreds of thousands of pounds being spent for a press release with Keir. So there we go. What are we doing about cycleways? What are we doing to help the provision of active travel as part of... You look at other councils, they're doing loads and loads of work. So I think we can be a greener council. I think we can get a green award again, but I think there's an awful lot more we could do to warrant that award.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Councillor Kendrick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm really fascinated by the reuse shop in Huddersfield, and I love the fact that since its launch, it's had 97 tonnes of items donated and recycled, and funds have helped local charities and so on. And I suppose I did look at the line on page 46, the large numbers under that point. There's an underlined bit, new reuse shop on the Kirklees Together website. My technological abilities have failed me, so I haven't been able to look at that. I'm assuming that is just advertising the Huddersfield reuse shop. what I would like to see and ask if there's any hope in the future for a reuse shop elsewhere in Kirklees, because you think in climate emergency terms it's a bit unproductive to be driving across from North Kirklees to donate to the reuse shop in Huddersfield. I think it's a fantastic thing. I'd love some thought to be given to a future reuse shop elsewhere in Kirklees as well. As for Councillor Cooper's point, I sort of agree, but also a lot of things go hidden under the radar, don't they? Like uniform exchange, I think we provide funding to them, and certainly as a ward councillor, I promote it across my ward, and local groups and charities in my ward promote it, and manage to get even more uniforms for families who are in need. But the reuse shop is the thing that I would really like to see further. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kendrick. Councillor Sheard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Improving quality of life, supporting growth, things that are all mentioned in the environment strategy. But how is cutting opening hours to tips and closing the Nab Lane tip going to improve the quality of life of people? How's it going to support growth? It was also mentioned that the strategy will invite people to engage with the council on the environment and the type of environment policy that the council is going to put forward. But when it came to the Nab Lane tip, as a ward councillor, I wasn't even consulted myself. So how are we going to progress forward with that? How can we support the environment? Well, suggestion, keep Nab Lane tip open. It will reduce emissions, 20-mile round trip to Dewsbury and back to Birstall. It'll encourage recycling and it'll cut down fly tipping. Obviously, the environment's at the heart of what the Cabinet wants to achieve. So can I also ask then, with the reduction in opening hours of tips and with the closure of the Nab Lane tip, has an environmental risk assessment been taken to assess the risk of the closures and the reduction in opening hours? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sheard. Councillor Munro.
Thank you, Matt. I'm pleased to note the Council wants to protect natural habitats and create new green spaces. I am, however, interested to know if this Council is so concerned, as it seems in this policy, as this does not explain why it enables housing developments to be built when biodiversity net gain cannot be achieved on site and local wildlife, trees and greenery are lost. How will this Council achieve its aspiration in this report as set out to achieve so-called sustainable neighbourhoods, striking a balance between social, economic and environmental aspects when the natural environment has been all but removed due to housing density on sites? This all seems aspirational only. Frequently, biodiversity offsetting is used as compensation in the form of investment via Section 106 monies in land, often at a distance from the site that's being developed. It's my view that this is unacceptable. It's unacceptable because the council is at risk of creating urban jungles void of greenery, trees and wildlife. It's particularly important when you consider the introduction of biodiversity credits. In addition, it's all very well providing a glossary of terms such as green and blue infrastructure, industrial symbiosis and biodiversity offsetting. Such jargon risks losing a sense of meaning in our actions on the natural environment. As a councillor, I have not been asked for feedback on this policy, so I am speaking today. This is my feedback. I think some of the proposals in this policy that impact on residents, it's really important that residents are consulted on any of the aspects of this policy, that they're consulted in a meaningful and transparent way, that their views are obtained, and they are fully informed of what is at stake and what plans might mean for them. That's of huge importance. This must be done at every opportunity in relation to this policy and any impacts on it in our areas. I must highlight the current proposals for Almonbury, Lum Valley, where councillors have been excluded from decisions and residents have been not consulted in a meaningful way. I would like to see an end to this kind of approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Munro. I've got a list of 6 speakers still to go. We've got to get to the right of reply and also a vote within 15 minutes. So I am going to close the list. Okay. So, Councillor Yusra Hussain, please.
Yeah, in terms of the reuse shop, Madam Mayor, that question has actually been asked before in this chamber, and I think a year or so on, we still don't have a reuse shop in the north. Given that the Cabinet Member for Greener has presented the strategy to us this evening, can we have a commitment from this Labour administration to have a reuse shop in the north of Kirklees? And like the member across the chamber, Joshua, has asked about the waste recycling site, can we have a commitment to the waste recycling site to remain open on Nab Lane? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hussain. Councillor Will Simpson.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I think it'd be difficult for there to have been more consultation on this strategy. The work and consultation has been extensive to the extent that it started when I was the Cabinet Member. For those of you that don't know how long ago that was 4 Prime Ministers ago or 2 council leaders ago in Kirklees terms. Since Councillor Ahmed was mentioning awards, since he so wonderfully took his place, I will mention that at the site, Councillor Cooper so wonderfully mentioned, and I was delighted to take the Prime Minister to. We did win an award for that, so thank you for mentioning it, Councillor Cooper. I just want to say very briefly that we do punch above our weight as a council when it comes to culture and greener, and that's because we are a council that's committed to those issues and we're taken seriously by funders because of it, but it's also because we have fantastic officers in those teams. So I just wanted to make my little speech now to say a massive thank you in particular to Kat, to Rob, to all the officers in the climate team, and also a little shout out to Sean and Colin, who left us with great treachery for other authorities.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. Councillor Itrat Ali.
Madam Mayor, elected members, thank you. Whilst I welcome the report, it's great to see the environment being made a priority, because I think it has a huge impact on the health and well-being of our residents. And also it's refreshing to see that the council leader is actually, making sure that, she's delivering on that greener and healthier Kirklees and leading on the environment and climate emergency. What I would like to see in the report would be some finer detail. I'm at odds really to understand, looking at the report, how this is going to be delivered without any direct capital investment associated with it. It would be good to see actual detail around where that human resource is coming from. One thing I would like to say is that I do welcome the fact that partner agencies have been consulted and worked with. In particular, we've got the mention of CAL and health and to influence health and well-being. So an example that I want to give with the closure of the Dewsbury CAL and cuts to resources. Obviously, residents are making use of green spaces and the environment for health and well-being purposes. One of the resources that we're really looking to have in Kirklees is the Greenway, which runs through most of our wards, so certainly through Dewsbury, Cleckheaton, Murfield. And a lack of investment currently might seem small in the big scale of things, but the removal of refuse collection on that Greenway, I walk on it every single morning, and the amount of litter, refuse, waste, dog waste, poo bags, is having a huge impact on the environment. So I'd like some clarification on what small investment's going to come to try and improve the environment that we've got and the green spaces that we've got at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Ali. I'm now going to go to Councillor Hall, and then I will be closing the list there. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a few comments to make on this. The first is on page 55. There is mention of Spen Valley Greenway on there, and it rightly says it's a very successful amenity that we have in the Spen Valley. And I was just wondering whether the Cabinet member could give us some assurance that that greenway will be preserved for the use of walkers and cyclists and horse riders. The second was a point on the next page, on page 56, halfway down on objectives. And it says there, prioritising public or active modes of transport over private vehicles use wherever feasible. And I wonder whether, again, the Cabinet member could give us an example of what this might involve. But my biggest concern really with this is about the governance of it, and it relates to this on page 57. How will the strategy be governed? Now, there is a diverse variety of opinion in this room, as there is in the greater public, about matters to do with the environment and the climate emergency. And the only way that we will ever drive any of these things through is if you bring the public with you. The public will come with you if you show political leadership and two other things. You can make it cheaper for people and you can make it more convenient. Very important, those two. But the political ownership and steer is extremely important. Councillor Cooper has alluded to some of the successes of the Conservative administration from 2006. And these were done because it was a priority of the council at the time, and we showed the political leadership necessary to deliver it. At the bottom of page 57, it says how the strategy will be governed. And as far as I can see, reading that through, it will be largely self-appointed people, backbench ward councillors. It will be chaired by an officer. So where is the political steer in this? Where is the ownership of the Cabinet in this report? And how is the Cabinet going to ensure that some of these things are actually implemented? That's a big concern, and it should be a concern for all of us, whether we agree with most of what's in the paper or whether we don't. If the Council votes to adopt this particular strategy, we do need to make sure it's also implemented. So I would like a comment, please, on how the Cabinet is going to make sure that this is implemented. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Right of reply, Councillor Ahmed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a baptism of fire starting here with this particular one, but thank you very much. I'm going to try and respond to as many of the points as possible, not starting with individuals, but in terms of generally putting the whole aspect together. Clearly, there's been talk about how is this going to be implemented in terms of no action plan. Now, we've been transparent throughout the closed design process that this strategy is a framework of ambition and vision. I think a lot of the questions have been about where are the details in terms of this. So it is not an action plan. It is not a specific operational plan. And therefore it does not contain details of any actions of delivery. And it's important to note that because that's what the vision is about. And the details will come in the plans and the policies to sit beneath the strategy. And a process that we're already seeing in action through the recent waste resources strategy update and the implementing of the transport strategy and ongoing local plans. So that's important to know that this is not an action plan, and some of the details will be coming through policies and frameworks further down the line. And this is the vision to make sure that we can do this. And in terms of some targets, each of the 12 targets reflects the ambitions of the people who live, work and study in Kirklees, developed through the design process. So our ambition is balanced off with an alignment with what can be achieved to what we have the right level, and if we have the right level of commitment and investment. So whilst also reflecting the national commitment, legal obligations of best practice approaches to environmental sustainability will be upheld. I think there was a mention on partnership pledges. What are they? Are they going to be anything? Are we just going to be told? Councillor Cooper mentioned that we're just going to be doing what people are asking to them. This is giving voices to the voiceless. And it's important that pledges are there at the root level. So I just wanted to go through some of the organisations that have already pledged in advance. I think it's in the report, but I wanted to just go through that. Kirklees Active Leisure, Uniform Exchange, Kirklees Climate Commission, Third Sector Leaders, Home Valley Climate Action Group, River Home Connections, Greenhead College, Home Start, Moors for the Future, and Support to Recovery. These are only the start. We have not even yet approved the strategy. Once we have approved the strategy, there will be key partners and key people that we will be engaging with. And there will be more engagement with the members as well. So the strategy is the start of making sure that this vision can start in terms of being implemented. And in terms of just nurturing nature, the strategy framework has been developed with the input of partners across the district, and we will continue to work with these partners and develop new relationships, as I mentioned, which are the key to achieving that nurturing nature aspirations, and will continue to be innovative in the management of green space that falls within the council functions. In terms of accountability, the accountability rests with us. It will always rest with us through the process and the systems that we have, through scrutiny through council, and through obviously the cabinet, and also the officers have their own processes as well. So there will be sufficient scrutiny and rigour and accountability at the members' level as well. I think that's as much as I will say at the moment in terms of. I'm sure there's other points now. If there are, then I'll be more than happy for people to please email me, and I will try and respond to those. But I've tried to address as many as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Ahmed. We will now go to the vote. I'm going to suggest that we vote by console. Okay, that is carried. I am now going to call for the break. Now is your opportunity to have your chit-chats, your snacks. When you return to the chamber, please leave all of that outside. It's not only highly disrespectful for the speakers, it's very distracting, and it's not setting the right example. Thank you. See you all back at 7. Right, so welcome back. We will go straight to agenda item 17, which is the key discussion. It will take place upon the Children's Services Improvement Journey. So can I invite the Cabinet Member for Children's Services, Councillor Kendrick, to introduce the discussion? You have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can't tell if this microphone is switched on. I assume it is. There's no red light. Are you saying it's not, or it is now? Right. So I don't know. There's one slide to put up, whoever's in charge of the slide, an opening slide. There we are. Just leave it there till I say differently. I don't know if many of you, like I do, have those dark moments that stay in your mind that you reflect on from time to time. But for those of you who've been around quite a long time as councillors, and there's quite a few of you, I'll take you back 8 years, when we received a devastating outcome from an Ofsted inspection for children's services. And we were, I think, across the chamber, shocked and devastated by being found that children's services in Kirklees were inadequate. And woefully inadequate. Children were not safe, we were told. Quite shocking stuff to hear. That stays, that dark moment stays in my mind. And I think within a year, 18 months, we had a whole range of people coming forward, brave people coming forward with disclosures about child sexual exploitation in Kirklees. You know, another dark moment, piled on pile. And then 7 years ago, I got gifted children's services. And I have to say, at that point, I thought, another dark moment. You know, it felt like a mountain and a half to climb. And I had no idea what one would do about it. Who says I know now, but I think I do. Mel Meggs came and joined the council as Director of Children's Services, and she was a wonderful breath of fresh air and guided us through all the difficulties that arose around CSE. And I remember many of us being at meetings talking about that, wanting to have it explained, wanting to understand what had gone on. Kirklees at that time, when we were found inadequate, we were lucky we weren't moved towards a different scenario. We were partnered with Leeds Council and Specialist, their director, their experienced social work staff came across to Kirklees to help, support and advise us. And happily, some of them stayed with us permanently, like the wonderful Elaine McShane, who stayed with us until her retirement. I was sad for Elaine because she desperately wanted a good Ofsted outcome before she retired, but she will be pleased that we have it now. Kirklees also had a social care commissioner, Eleanor Brazil, who came to oversee things, challenge us, guide us. She frightened me to death at first, but actually what a wonderful support and guidance she provided for this authority. So I can only thank her. The improvement board that we had then was chaired by Eleanor, and when she left, she said, my time now is finished. That was chaired by Jackie Gedman, our chief exec at that point, and eventually was renamed the Ambition Board because we started to turn a corner. It wasn't just about improving, it was ambitions in Kirklees to be even better than we might have expected. And that involved a lot of key partners who helped us in that. We didn't do this alone. With several monitoring visits during this period, never a fun time. And then in 2019, we had another full ILACS, another full Ofsted inspection. And I was deeply disappointed at the outcome then. We were requires improvement, which is better than inadequate, but I was hoping for good, at least in some aspects. But, you know, it is what it is. But another dark moment for me. I have to say, though, The commitment and skill and passion across Kirklees Children's Services has been tremendous, as has the involvement and passion from members in this chamber who've done really good stuff in terms of whether it's scrutiny, whether it's been the improvement board, the ambition board, cabinet colleagues, coming to corporate parenting. That has been invaluable to move us to where we are now. So now I'm going to do that thing that the NHS did. Next slide, please. So here we are, we've got inspection of local authority children's services, ILACs. So we had in July a 3-week inspection. Sadly, I was just about to go on holiday as the inspectors were coming, but I did get an interview with them beforehand. And I'll let you read that. I think the third bullet point, the leadership is established and confident with committed staff, strong corporate and political support, which has driven improvement. And that baton has been handed on to our current Director of Children's Services, Tom Brailsford, and to our newer Chief Exec, who is also an enthusiastic supporter and knows such a lot about children's services. I don't know if any of you have read the report. If you haven't, I recommend it. Okay, it's not the most lightweight reading, but it's really worth reading. It highlights things like there's a strong emphasis on helping children to remain safely within their family network where possible. This is the ethos and aspiration of leaders and is shared throughout the workforce. That really, to me, is incredibly important. Social workers know their children well. They undertake sensitive, direct work to help them understand their world. One really important one for me is young people who are care leavers spoke with genuine warmth and affection about the support they receive. They benefit from enduring and consistent relationships with their personal advisors. Every care leaver has a personal advisor. And the virtual school ensures that there's a clear focus on the academic and developmental needs of children. One that I've had, somebody sent me an email complaining about something and saying staff morale was poor in Kirklees. Ofsted says staff morale is high. There's a strong offer to newly qualified social workers, and the culture created by leaders has ensured that there's a workforce of skilled practitioners who are highly committed to the children of Kirklees. And that's what we as councillors all want to hear, isn't it? That's what we've been seeking and looking for. All being said, there's always room for improvement. There are things within, we got a rating of good in all areas, good overall, but for care leavers, it requires improvement to be good. And we knew about that. Wasn't a secret. We already had plans and steps in place. But, you know, I wanted Ofsted to come, but they came before we were ready with that bit. Next slide, please. I'm indulging myself here. Here is a letter to this council from Yvette Stanley, the Ofsted National Director of Regulation and Social Care. I'm assuming you can all read, unless your eyesight means that you can't manage it. But there we are. I'll leave you 2 minutes. So it's a really positive letter, you know, coming unsought out of the blue to say, blooming heck, you've done really well in Kirklees. And this service has. It's not about me. I'm honoured. It is an honour for me and a pleasure to work alongside all the officers in children's services and the partners and other colleagues who contribute so much. I highly value the work that Scrutiny has done in the past and does now to help us continue on. I highly value the contributions that colleagues make at the Ambition Board and at corporate parenting board, which is now called Kirklees Parenting Board, because the young people said, what the hell does corporate mean? And we all struggled to explain it, so we've changed it as such. So slide 4, please. So, ensuring corporate parenting is everybody's business. So I'm always inclined to preach at you, so here we go then. I've already said one aspect of our grade this time with care leavers was improvement to be good, and that we had plans in place. And part of what I want to say is to all of us as councillors, how there's an absolute need for us to work and contribute to the care leaver service. So you've got the numbers up there, 400 care leavers, doesn't tend to drop, it's likely to rise. You know, it's like a moving belt, some of them become 18, some become 26 and so on. And if the local government association says being a corporate parent is one of the most important jobs that councils do. It's one of the most important jobs that councillors can do. Absolutely essential as such. You move us on, please. So this is a bit of a busy slide. We have a corporate parenting strategy. If you haven't had a look at it and you want it, or I will just send it to all of you sometime next week perhaps. One of the important things for each of us to do is to have a better understanding of our care leavers, their assets and challenges. Until you sit and talk sometimes to some young people, you've no idea what it is they're facing and what they're dealing with, and the bizarre stigma that actually the wider public sometimes has about our looked after children or our care leavers. They haven't committed a crime to come into care. They've been let down by someone somewhere to come into care. We've got people who are volunteering, helping with things like homemaking. We have a group of ambassadors fundraising to support enhancement opportunities. One of the key ones of that is on Christmas Day, we provide a Christmas luncheon a day for care leavers who are on their own. Can you imagine being 18 and you're on your own and there's no one? That is so sad. And then we're looking for enhanced support and offers from organisation services, and you may know who they are. You know, ones that can provide work experience, training, activities, experience, and even employment. You know, those would be a really, really of benefit. So I'm really wanting people to think about this. I'm very happy to funnel any thoughts you have or any offers that you have into the right place. Now, next slide, we're nearly done, folks. The excruciating moment's nearly over. Okay? So, one of the big challenges for care leavers is suitable accommodation. It's the same for every council. You know, we have to try and provide them with accommodation. It isn't always possible to do it at the right time, but we're working with other providers to try and improve that. I do ask you to engage with and promote the strategy. Have a look at it. I'll send it out. Don't tell me you haven't had it. And our Care Leaver Forum has co-authored and is delivering a Kirklees parenting training to support this, to tell you what it's like, to give you some idea what the challenges are, what the ideas are, which may give you ideas about what you can do to help. When that's available, I hope you will sign up to it. It isn't hours long, but it is really informative and really important that we all engage with that. And the last slide. Ta-da! There we are. The discussion time is here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kendrick. Do we have any speakers? Andrew Marchington, please.
Councillor. Can you just put the question back up again, please? what can we do to realise our ambitions and goals?
Lovely. It's been a privilege to be part of this journey, and I don't say that it's something that we across the council have worked at and seen how things were when they weren't as good as any of us would like them to be. And I'd just like to congratulate Viv personally on the leadership she's shown. And I know you've been part of a team, and I always felt when we were in scrutiny you were part of a team and you listened. We worked together on that. I think, and it's actually a lesson. There's a lot of issues that we might want to do that. It's easy to say it's children, it's really important, yeah, but there's still things we need to do and there's ways of doing things. I think this is a process, is a really good one for lessons and actually asking open and honest questions about things, doing that in the right way, not having a go at people all the time. You're asking a question and actually building that level of trust, and that's really what's happened with children's services. So we've been able to unpick what wasn't working and see the contrast with what was. We, in scrutiny, when I was involved with scrutiny, went and visited a lot of frontline social workers. We visited a lot of the teams. It was amazing. There was somebody who we interviewed a long time ago when Children's Services down at Riverside Court had come full circle and was part of the management team up in Civic Centre 3. And they'd obviously gone, so obviously things had improved to the extent that they wanted to come back. And that was good. There's some things that we do in Kirklees that's different. We don't have, compared to our neighbours, it is a big number, but there's fewer children looked after than people might expect. That has always been a challenge. And we have things like kinship carers, and we're not the only authority that's done kinship care. Leeds has also done that. It's really important. It has much better outcomes for children and young people, but there's questions asked about it. And I know Jackie Ramsey, she kept asking questions about it. We found questions that got to be assured that we're getting the best outcomes for our children. We mustn't be complacent, but we're in an environment where we can keep asking questions. Staff feel comfortable about being open and honest about it, and then we can drive improvement. My caution about this, about a good result, is it's about resourcing. When things were difficult, we got it wasn't just working in partnership with Leeds, we got the appropriate resources we needed to sort it out. And there's a danger of looking at, the fact we didn't have agency staff as social workers has made a big, certainly got cohesive teams. They were willing to cover for one another. They'd sooner have, cover for a colleagues rather than have somebody who didn't know the team coming in. That did lead to an increase in caseworks, and we were looking at. So there's pressures, and there's a danger when difficult decisions need to be made that we look at a good service and think, can you do without? We need to be really careful. And if we need to, at all levels, it puts pressure on the council for us to do the right thing, but we know who holds the purse strings. And they shouldn't be looking at Kirklees and saying, "Oh, you can do with a bit less." I think the really annoying one was about the money where we weren't given the money we needed for special educational needs. It was a recognition a mistake had been made. We've never got the money back, and that's and all of us ought to be saying, if you make a mistake, you need to put it right. So we need to take that. And I think the other, some really innovative stuff going on which take resources. So the multi-systemic therapy team, it's a lot of money, but it was really effective, working with parents to make sure that children are not even anywhere near the care system. And then other things, wider things about the mental health in schools team, which is a partnership team. We know that parents and children, young people are really worried about their mental health, and some of that is some really good stuff going in Kirklees, but it requires appropriate resourcing, working with partners and trusting the judgment of partners. I think that was the greatest thing for me, to see police officers trusting the judgment of social workers, health service professionals picking things up, people in educational settings being the person who's best placed to work with a young person, and that was great. So I've probably had my time, but yeah, it is. But we've got a good foundation. We need to keep making sure that as many children, we reduce the risk potential as we can do. So, no.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Mark Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not known in the chamber for throwing compliments around lightly. But I would like to say in the 6 years I've been in the Chamber that it is apparent, obvious, that Viv, to sum it up into a word, cares. And I admire the tenacity and the dedication that you put into this particular service, Viv. And that's probably the only compliment that you... So, a couple of points, and I suppose as a father of a daughter and a grandfather of a granddaughter as well, there's certain things that become quite personal that happens from time to time, and has happened in the past in Huddersfield to a massive degree, which was the grooming gangs. I don't like to call it child sexual exploitation because it sort of puts a clinical term to it, and really it was, you could class it as gang rapes, you can class it as grooming, whatever you want to call it, but it was abhorrent. And what I'd like to think is that the children's services working with police and schools have tied it down so tight that it's not ever possible again. I'd like to see the report on that, what we're doing, what we have done to get good, but how we can go forward to get great as far as protecting our girls in the borough. And then the next point that I wanted to cover was reference to adoption and fostering. One of my children are adopted. So, meaning adopted in, not adopted out. And what we've found is that a child that goes into an adoption or fostering process, even though my daughter went into adoption at 3 days old and we adopted her at 15 months, that the trauma is always there. And what I'd like to think is that, and unfortunately the case is that many, no, I won't say that because that's not fair, some foster parents and adoptive parents, no, foster parents in particular, do it as an income. Not that they don't care, and not that they don't look after the child's basic needs. I would like to think in the report there is a mechanics and a way forward to enable people to nurture the child as far as education's concerned, and also to feel as if they're part of the family while they're there. And I'm only saying this from personal experience, that often when they come out of fostering into adoption, there is all sorts of issues that take years and years. In our case, 15 years before some of these traumas calm down. But then GCSEs come along and it all starts again. But anyway, that's another story. So I would like to see in the report what we are doing now and what we will be doing ongoing as far as the fostering and adoption process, that which means a lot to me, but it also means a lot to the children that are going through that. Now, my last point is more to do with funds, and this is only allegation as far as TV is concerned. So I am not pointing fingers, I am not part of these allegations, I am viewing something that seemed to be a misappropriation of funds in Kirklees, reference to bribes from teachers and social worker in the Almondbury area. And I did wonder whether Child Services have looked at this or are looking at it, because it is to the tune of £237,000 that the allegations were. So those are my three statements and questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Carol Patterson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have to say I've shared some of this journey with Viv. Not haven't been quite as involved as her, but I have to, having shared it with her, congratulate Viv and Mel Meggs and Elaine for all the work that they did put in to get us from that very dark place. And I have to say to Tom Brailsford and his team for keeping us there and still doing the work that Viv says, obviously, still we can still improve. I share that dark moment because I was on scrutiny and I remember the then Chief Exec coming in to brief us urgently about this situation, and the room did go dark. We all felt absolutely, yes, ashamed. You know, what had happened? How did we miss it? What's gone wrong? And it was a very dark moment. But then, when I joined Viv and shared a portfolio with her and responsible for learning and aspiration, I mean, by that time, a lot of work had already gone on to really improve the services, and it was great to see. But just to comment really on two aspects of what I did see, care leavers and the virtual school. The work that the virtual school does is absolutely astounding in Kirklees. And I'm sure within the report well, Viv has mentioned it, but that it has to have a bit of an accolade. It does do better than many of the other authorities or other virtual schools around the country. I mean, unfortunately, care leavers do not succeed or achieve to the level that we would all wish our children to achieve at, but they do better than average in Kirklees, and that is down to the work of the virtual school, which is absolutely amazing. And the work that they have to do, it's not just looking after children locally. They might have to travel 200 miles to deal with a child who is placed somewhere out of the area, and it's a very exacting job for any of the social workers and educationalists working in the virtual school. So I do have to praise them for that. I also want to praise some of the work that our community learning does as well. I mean, there's a lot of care leavers that end up leaving school without any qualifications, and our community learning services do pick those up at a later stage, and there's an awful lot of work that then goes on to help wrap around those children, those care leavers, in terms of support. And as it says, you know, landing in a house is a very lonely business if you end up there with no support from anyone whatsoever. Just one last thing, I also want, again, I think Andrew mentioned the kinship carers. Again, we've got some really good support that we do give to kinship carers. Many a time they have been praised to me personally, the social workers working there. They do an excellent job in supporting kinship carers. People who have suddenly found, your grandparents suddenly find themselves with a 2-year-old, 6-year-old, teenager even, without a clue as to what they should be doing. And the work that goes on there is exceptional as well. So I just want to just finish on one thing that which leads in perhaps to what Viv was saying about corporate parenting. Mel Meggs always had a bit of a mantra, and she always said, would you want this for your child? Would you expect this to happen if it was your child? What would you expect them to be able to do? What would you think that your child would be expecting? And she always put herself and her team in that position. And so has Viv. So congratulations to Viv.
Thank you. Councillor Richard Smith, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm also probably not known for being overly complimentary every time I stand up and speak, but you know, it's probably something that we should celebrate. It is good news. I remember in the bad old days when we had that really poor Ofsted report and all the stuff that we've discussed as well. And there's been a lot of really good work, and I don't really want to name people, if I'm honest with you, because I've attended corporate parenting or Kirklees parenting board and the children's scrutiny panel for several years now, and I would struggle to single out people. Obviously, we all know about Mel and her contribution and the other people that have been mentioned. But, generally, I think this has been a massive effort from so many different people. And I do like, as Councillor Thompson said, I pay tribute to Viv as well, because she does care, and it's evident. And, sitting across each other in this chamber, we don't agree about politics, clearly, otherwise we wouldn't be here. But this is not really a political issue. The kids in Kirklees are our responsibility. And I bang on about this quite a lot. But we are all corporate parents, and it's very important because, I'm a father myself, and, I enjoy being a dad, and so hopefully I've done a reasonable job. It's probably a good thing, actually, because my son's only 14, he's already taller than me. But in terms of these children who've not got that support, it's really important that us as corporate parents do actually take this real seriously. There's so many different things I can think about that have been discussed at these various forums that stick in my mind. I could go well over 5 minutes sort of recounting them, but one of the things I remember, and I've probably mentioned this before in council, is visiting the youth offending team, and it was a really funny experience because the chap was also called Richard Smith, who was there at the time. Obviously a common name. And he was... So he was very, very informative, and I took away a lot from that afternoon I spent there. And one of the things I remember really clearly was, this thing about if a kid broke a window in a children's home, what was the first thing that happened? And the police would come along, and I know I've said this before, but if it was my son, you wouldn't call the police, and that's the difference. You'd mend the window, you'd probably fall out with him for a little while, but you wouldn't call the police. And these people, at some point, I don't think this has happened today, but at some point in the past, they were taken to the police station. I would imagine they weren't locked up in Armley or anything, but, it's not a good experience. And they haven't got the support that the other kids in my family, for example, have. So that's why it's very important. And we're all corporate parents, and people who are newly elected, you may not necessarily realise that, but you are. And you need to be taken on board. And it's exactly what Councillor Patterson said, that Mel used to say, is this what you would expect for your own child? And if it isn't, then you need to ask questions. And, so all I'm saying is, I agree with, a lot of the tributes that have been made, and well done. Carry on.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Moses-Crook, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Viv, for the presentation and for the focus that you continue to bring to this really important service that the Council provides. Firstly, can I add my congratulations to the outstanding job that officers, led by the excellent Councillor Kendrick, have done in turning children's services around and achieving this positive Ofsted rating. I'm sure we'd all wish to congratulate the service and, most importantly, to share the delight in knowing that the 614 children within Kirklees who are in need of our care and protection and the 400 care leavers aged 18 to 25 are experiencing better and improving care, which will in turn lead to better outcomes and better lives. I've listened to Viv speaking about children's services here on several occasions, and in particular paid attention to the focus she places on those currently in our care, and I very much support our recent move to recognise experience of care as a protected characteristic. The concept of corporate parenting, that we're all surrogate parents for the young people in our care, is a responsibility that I would like to take on in a more meaningful way. But for me at least, there's a slight disconnect in understanding what we can offer and how we can actually contribute to support our young people. Parenting is hard to define, and I'm sure my own children would happily attest to my own failures here. There are certain measurable metrics which can be correlated to life outcomes. Opportunities for work experience, the fact that having a professional parent is still the strongest indicator of likely entry into a professional career, even being read to regularly as a young child as a measure of likely academic success, and so on. Then there were the unmeasurable bits. How to budget and go about your weekly shop, how to get the best deal on your heating bills, build up social networks, get support in following interests and aspirations, the mutual pleasure of a shared interest and even the silent support of a hug after a bad day at school. These are all factors in developing self-confidence and the resilience that a fulfilling life demands. We can all offer something to our 1,014 children and young people with care experience. It could be work experience with us directly. Many of us have interesting jobs as well as being counsellors. It could simply be some mentoring, a monthly chat and a coffee. It could be volunteering together to help others, or even in political campaigning. It could be as an advocate for them through some challenge that they're facing. So my question for Viv is this, and some of this has been answered by the slides, but please could you provide some practical advice on how those of us here understand this role and would like to contribute, and actually to mutually benefit from working with our children and young people can get involved? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. Councillor John Lawson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Comments are quite brief, though. Thanks to officers and Councillor Kendrick for bringing the presentation today. I'll begin by congratulating all those involved in getting the result of good from the recent Ofsted report. Since Children's Services went into special measures back in 2016-17, all parties, and I mean all parties, have turned to give as good a service as they can in terms of delivery and in scrutiny. The report seems to me like a whole of council report and is warmly welcomed as such. I could go on to wax lyrical, but Councillor Kendrick has highlighted the successes of the past few years, and I agree with them. And I also agree with one or two of the areas that you pointed out as those are their development, those are the way forward. I'm pleased to be on the fledgling Kirklees Parenting Board, and I will thenceforth try and promise never to say corporate parenting ever again. I hated the phrase whilst I was on corporate parenting, and I am glad it's a thing of the past. I hope that we can further, on that board, I hope that we can further cement partnerships. I'm happy to redouble our efforts, because that's where the future lies in my book, is that joint working, that joint investment, and that realisation from partnerships that actually what they're doing is they're helping their own services out in the future, so that children are helped now, so they don't have to come through a revolving door in the future. I also understand that the next Kirklees Parenting Board is a takeover meeting, so I look forward to that with interest and see what they have in store for us. Since 2017, though, we've thrown a lot of money at Children's Services because that's what it needed, and it was absolutely the right thing to do. We now, though, need to see how we can bring efficiency into that directorate, and not in the regular, expected ways we might do it elsewhere in council, but in innovation and tackling some of the known areas where cash is drained from the system. The placement for children placed in care outside the authority is well known as an area where we need to try and grasp that nettle and try and improve it on. But it's done because we have no alternative. It's the right thing to do, it's the thing we have to do, but we have no alternative to it. So we need to be thinking about those alternatives across the board in Children's Services. But at the same time, of course, ensuring quality and the standard of care in those early years for children in care. Liberal Democrat Group has worked towards this common goal. We'll continue to do so, and we will double our effort to try and push us into excellent. We also look forward to a time when single word reports are a thing of the past, because they do no good. They can do a lot of harm by ignoring a lot of good work that's happened, and we look forward to binning them in the near future. I'd just add one last little bit. It was actually Councillor Thompson who sparked me on this one. On the way in today, I was listening to BBC Radio 4 Moneybox, and they were talking specifically about fostering, and there was a really nice little phrase about the fine line between incentivizing financially and actually relying on the love that people have to offer. And you don't hear that word very often in this setting, do we? But the love that people have to offer offsets the financial. The financial there is to reassure people that there will be no financial implications and that they don't self-exclude from coming forward because of that. And it's a great little programme. It's just a little section in the Money Box programme. 3 o'clock, I think, on BBC Radio 4. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Councillor Graham Turner, please.
Sorry, it's this thing gets it weird, doesn't it? Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've talked about dark moments and remembering things, and I remember the day we were told the Cabinet how bad children's services were. 2 o'clock on a Monday, the Cabinet and the senior leadership team and directors used to meet every Monday at 2 o'clock. And those meetings could be quite interesting, and there were debates and whatever. Sometimes you might even argue that they're unruly. But the day that the then Chief Exec stood up and explained the problems within children's services, to say he could have heard a pin drop would be an understatement. It came as a complete and utter shock to us all, because we'd been reassured everything was okay. And then, you imagine how bad it is, but when you start looking into the detail of it, it was worse than perhaps I thought it could be. It was genuinely really not very good. And to learn that our children were not safe was a real shock. Anyway, we're now in from those dark moments. I believe, thanks to Viv, we're in some sunny uplands, and the future's great. And Viv's contributions cannot be underestimated. I've had is it a pleasure, the dubious pleasure perhaps, of sharing a desk with her for all the time during children's services?
Share a desk?
Well, we sit opposite each other. I sit near enough so she can hit me, put it like that. So I've lived and breathed this with her, because quite often we were the two people who were in there, because we obviously had very large portfolios. So I've lived and breathed this in some ways with her. When she wanted somebody to moan at, it was me. When she wanted to groan about, it was me. So I understand the level of work and commitment she's put in there. It's beyond what you can imagine. Lots of people won't realise just how much time now she's put in this. And the important thing in all this was that we avoided being placed in a trust. You cannot imagine how important that was. Because if we'd have been placed in a trust, we would have lost control of our children's services. It would have cost us an arm and a leg. And I genuinely believe the outcome would have been worse. We wouldn't have got to where we are now without us driving that agenda ourselves, and Viv pushing the team along, and all the fantastic options. And I'm not going to name names because it's too many, because every single person in children's services played a part in getting to where we are. So that was really, really important in those early days. And it wasn't without its challenges, but, and these are buts, Viv was like a Yorkshire Terrier. Every time the government pushed back, she let go to get a better grip. And she pushed them until we got to that point. And that was a real saving grace, I think, for our children's services, not being placed in trust, because there's lots of evidence up and down the country that it takes a lot longer to get out of a trust. It costs a lot more money. So I think people should realise that pushing by Viv to make sure we weren't put in a trust, and the support of officers, there were lots of people involved, but she drove that agenda. I think that's really, really important. We should, for those who don't recognise that, just have a thought on that. That was a turning point for me for children's services. And as I say, thank you very much, Viv. And she'll probably be on the way home. So I've got to give her up.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Councillor Kath Pinnock, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're very fortunate, actually, to have had such dedicated leadership of children's services, both from officers and from members. We've transformed children's lives, so thanks very much, Viv, for what you've done. I want to extend our thinking a bit. Nationally, we know that absenteeism rate in schools is 8% since COVID and 5% before. And nationally, we know that persistent absenteeism stands at about 21%. Now, I don't know what the figures are for Kirklees, but so that would be interesting to know. But young people who are absent from school persistently often get involved in activities that the rest of the children's services would regret and would want to try and help them make sure they don't get drawn into situations which will be harmful for their lives. So that's one point, and I'm not sure who focuses on that, because we don't, in my opinion, talk enough about schools, children in schools and learning as much as we used to, and as much as, in my view, we should, because there are children, even if they're in academies. The second point that follows, of course, is that some young people are excluded from school. And although they are often placed in one of the private providers or the Kirklees provision, not as, in my experience, not as much attention is given with the private providers for children who are excluded. Not enough attention is given as to their attendance and their learning achievements, because they too are at risk if we don't put a focus on that. I'm sorry to be extending your work level there, Viv, but that's where we are. So that the third question is partly related, is that families who move into Kirklees with children of school age often find it really difficult or impossible to find a school place within the area. Not necessarily the nearest one, but within the area. So I'll give an example. So one family moved into part of Cleckheaton Ward and was given a school place in, not even in Dewsbury, I think it was in Thornhill. And there was actually no way possible that they could get there to get to school, either because they had to use public transport. So that is a serious issue. I mean, I solved it, of course I did, but well, you have to, but you have to though, don't you? Because otherwise that child would not go to school. So that is, for me, is really important. How and who is addressing that, and where are the solutions? Because if I'm getting several issues on that score, so will everybody else in this room. I think I'll leave it at that for three things there. Persistent absenteeism, absenteeism generally, exclusions and the consequences, and what about finding local schools that children can access.
Thank you, Councillor Pinnock. Councillor Amanda Pinnock, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Viv, first of all, for her informative presentation today, taking us through the journey that Kirklees has had to go through because of the difficulties we're experiencing at the time, but also to recognise the hard work and dedication of past and present officers and former and current councillors over the years who have played a massive role in turning the service around. So we heard from Viv that in 2016, Kirklees Council made history for all the wrong reasons. This Ofsted report identified a catalogue of errors and issues, giving us the lowest rating of inadequate, deeming our children unsafe. That's a really scary place to be. Our children being unsafe, and so many other people have talked about that in this chamber, about children being unsafe, vulnerable children being failed by Kirklees Council. And although at the time I was a young councillor, I recall hearing the devastating news and how this negative news impacted on my colleagues, senior management and the service. And problems just kept coming thereafter. The high number of social workers leaving the service, putting us in greater jeopardy. Over 450 staff left the service over 4 years. Also the use of expensive agency staff, obviously costing the council more money. But also it left our young people struggling to form positive and long-lasting relationships and experiences with workers. And of course, the additional cost to radically make the service more efficient and more effective. So we've really been through the wars. We saw Eleanor Brazil, OBE, appointed by the government to help turn the service around, and the involvement as Leeds City Council, as Viv has said. And in the background, we have the ad hoc scrutiny children's panel, which was set up, a focus group to consider the ongoings of the service, tracking the direction of travel, and also making recommendations. And I recall sitting on that panel and having a first-hand direct experience of how the service was evolving and making itself through the difficult journey. And I think I'd like to take this opportunity as well to thank Councillor Marchington, because it was a difficult time, and I commend him for taking on the challenge and also dealing with it so well at that time. It was rocky, it was a very slow improvement journey, but obviously we've got there in the end. And I'm proud that we've now received the Ofsted rating of good and what the council has achieved so far. Massive thank you to Councillor Kendrick for rolling up her sleeves and getting on with it. And even though Councillor Kendrick wasn't the portfolio holder and the Labour group weren't in administration at the time when Ofsted came to visit, she stepped up to the challenge and steered Kirklees in the right direction along with officers. So thank you very much, Viv, for doing that at that time. And I'd like to say that Councillor Kendrick is a credit to Kirklees Council, because she demonstrates that hard work and dedication can really pay off. And I have to say the same, and I have to say the same of officers, because obviously Councillor Kendrick, she certainly couldn't do it by herself. She did it with the help of dedicated, strong officers, and we've heard so much today about who was involved. Even the ones that we haven't heard about, I'd like to thank you for your hard work and dedication, because the Ofsted report that we received now praises the Council for good quality support for vulnerable young people and children. It identifies significant improvements in several areas, including children's safety, as well as children's well-being and children with disabilities. This is now a foundation for us to build upon, and we cannot be complacent. We have to keep moving forward. We want to see an improvement every single time Ofsted come in, something we can all be proud of. And for me personally, as a new cabinet member, just this week, I met with the Kirklees virtual schools team, and we've heard a little bit about them today. I think Viv's talked about them, and Carol's talked about them as well. They are a remarkable, passionate team who work with social services, schools and colleges to support pupils in education who are in care. And they provide advice and intensive support, especially around SEND. What I have learned about the team, doing my research, is that 100% of personal education plans are completed within timescales, which I'm really proud of, and really shows the commitment they have to education and our children in care. 99% of those plans are actually completed within 10 working days, which is brilliant. So when I met the team then, I had an opportunity to ask them some really pertinent questions that were important to me. One of the questions I asked them was, what are you most proud of? What do you want to celebrate most about your role?
Start drawing to a closure, please.
Oh, sorry. No. And many of them boasted about the tangible difference they were making in the lives of young people, especially improving their confidence and realising their potential. But the other question I asked, which is just as important, is what changes would they like to see in respect of their role? And what I expected was possibly a negative feedback, but actually the feedback that I received was that they weren't talking about the negative things about the service. They were talking about the improvement, identifying more foster carers, which is what we've talked about today, and finding ways of enhancing the offer. And I'll stop there. But again, congratulations to everybody who's been involved in this.
Thank you, Councillor Pinnock. Councillor Hawkins, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know Councillor Kendrick is very well aware of my admiration for her, but I do want to thank Viv for years of commitment to children's services as the Cabinet member. I'll pay tribute to the officers shortly, but Councillor Hall mentioned earlier about the importance of political leadership, and I think Councillor Kendrick has been providing that over many years, which has seen children's services revived. I do also want to thank all the officers who've been involved in making this outcome possible, including those at Leeds City Council who supported the journey that Kirklees has been on. It is their commitment to what has been a massive undertaking They are the ones who have driven our children's services forward and transformed children's lives, as Councillor Pinnock said earlier. A particular area I want to praise is how Kirklees has gone the extra mile for its children, and particularly those who have left care. During the pandemic, I volunteered alongside council staff and other community members in delivering meals on Christmas Day to our care leavers. The look on the faces of those children who've just come out of care, who are looking forward to spending their first Christmas alone, just to know that somebody's come and said that they care for them. I do want to pick up on something that Councillor Kendrick mentioned, and it has been explored earlier in the meeting as well. We as councillors do have a responsibility and a role to engage with our communities. We can do this. Councillors have done this and have proven we can do this. Nab Lane was raised earlier on in the meeting, as well as, but also the recent proposals on the library services as well. I've seen and been a part of campaigns that have engaged the local community in the council's processes. Imagine if we could engage our communities in a similar way on our children's services as well, because after all, it does take a village to raise a child. But this certainly isn't the end of the road. There is one more step we need to take, having our children's services rated as outstanding. So I'd like to ask what Councillor Kendrick thinks will be the next steps for Kirklees in order to achieve that outstanding grade. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Councillor Yusra Hussain, please. I think Councillor Hussain will be the last speaker because I'm going to draw the list to a closure and allow Councillor Kendrick to round up. Thank you. Councillor Hussain.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also welcome the report, but having listened across the chamber about what members have said about safeguarding children, supporting and protecting the safety of vulnerable people, the confidence and health and well-being, it's all very important for the future generation. But I also know what Soraya said in her deputation about Dewsbury Sports Centre, and she highlighted some very serious concerns in terms of knife crime and antisocial behaviour. So I would like to know if this Labour administration is committed to keeping Dewsbury Sports Centre open for the vulnerable children of the north of Kirklees and improving their health and well-being and confidence.
Thank you, Councillor Hussain. I'm now going to go to Councillor Kendrick for a round-up. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Madam Mayor. Can we just start off, and it is very gratifying.
I was trying to point out there's a fly on your head.
All right.
There you go. I refuse to knock it off while you're on camera.
Serves you right for speaking over, Councillor Turner. Viv, I might need you to start going around the chamber with that, if you don't mind.
Let's get one thing straight. It's really gratifying to have all these thanks and things to me. It really isn't anything to do with me. I'm more like the annoying fly buzzing round the service, poking my nose into everything. It is the resilience of all the people who work in children's services, from strategic directors, heads of service, right down through all the frontline workers. They're the ones who've made this change. We've just, hopefully as an administration, helped them do that. And, you know, it's been an honour and a pleasure. But it's lovely to hear the stuff, but, you know, let's get it in perspective. I don't do anything except poke my nose in. If I'll try and pick out some of the things that people have said. Andrew talked about resources versus savings. I have to say, and I'll put a warning out to our chief executive, we know each other a bit, but not that well. I am like a Rottweiler if you want to take money off children's services. You know, so we can have a bit of a toe-to-toe if necessary. Where it is necessary, and there are things being developed within the service that will make some savings, but the most important thing is the outcome of what they're doing, like the transformation plan, will be a better outcome for our children, our foster carers, our special guardianship order carers. The resources fine is almost a byproduct as such. Mark, you talked about CSE not being ever possible again. I really don't think that's realistic. There are horrible people in this world, we know that. They come and go. The one thing I would say, that one of the things that Ofsted said in the report was, children at risk of exploitation benefit from a strong multi-agency response. This helps reduce the risk to children and disrupts the activities of the exploiters. And that is an ongoing focus that the multi-agency team have, you know, so that's really important. That's probably as good as it's going to get anywhere, you know, but I do accept what you're saying in those terms. There is a trauma related to adoption or fostering, no matter what age a child is. You know, and people talk about, oh, perhaps the behaviours of children who are looked after or care leavers. They may be traumatised with what's happened to them in their home before they came into care, and then they're traumatised again by coming into care. You know, I had one young woman, one care leaver said to me, I was taken into care at the age of 7 in the back of a police car, and I thought I'd done something wrong and was going to prison. And she said, and if you can imagine what it's like to wake up in the morning and know you have to go downstairs and have a breakfast with these strangers, that is really hard at very vulnerable ages, you know. So, and that's why the training is really important for all councillors to understand what it means to be looked after, not only in this authority but anywhere. As for the comment about funds and bribes, I have no idea, apart from I suspect it's some of Mr. Tommy Robinson's stuff that he perpetuates, and I don't believe he's necessarily, my opinion, got an honest bone in his body. So, I mean, unless there's something very relevant that somebody wants to show to me, I would dismiss that. Carol, you talked about the virtual school, and about exclusions and threats of exclusions, and it sort of comes on to what you were asking me, Kath. I'm sorry I'm using everybody's first name, I hope you don't mind. I'm old, I can't remember the last names. But absenteeism from school and permanent absenteeism, perpetual, no, that's the wrong word again, is looked at by the virtual school for our looked after children very, very much. And they also, where there is a threat of exclusion, are the greatest champions of our looked after young people, children and young people, and have a very good track record in getting that sorted out. But I do accept exclusions seem to be too easy at times. And it's interesting, isn't it, because we do have some schools in Kirklees that never do an exclusion. So what's different there? And it is something we're looking at as such. The moving, I'll keep on with yours as I've started it. Moving into Kirklees, particularly in-year moves, are really difficult. Amanda Pinnock and I had a briefing, I think, yesterday, again looking at population of children, young people, which is dropping. And very often local schools are encouraged to reduce their pupil admission numbers because it makes them unsustainable if they keep on with a higher level, which means an in-year move is incredibly difficult. I'm glad you got that resolved, and we do try and resolve them. But, you know, if a school has reduced its admission numbers and it's full, it's full. And, you know, that's the challenge. You know, any school that keeps its admission number way above reality is really putting itself in danger of becoming unsustainable financially altogether. However, it is something we will continue to look at. Where are we now? Who else will I ever go at? Richard Smith talked about what can councils as corporate parents do. One of the first things is have this training from our young people, start to understand, and that will give you some clues. You're all imaginative, intelligent people who will come up with ideas about, oh, in my area there's this, there's that, is that any good, you know? And that's what we really want. And I do remember you talking at length about your visit to the youth justice team, that the thing about reporting things to the police, like breaking a window at a registered care home, that isn't an issue now. That doesn't happen now. It isn't reported to the police. It's dealt with, and staff have had a lot of training on that as to how to deal with that issue properly. Moses. I really like your energy and enthusiasm to do something, and what can we offer, what can we do? I don't want to throw a particular officer under the bus by naming them and say get in touch with them, but what I will promise, in this next week I will send out a direct contact where you think you want to do something, and they will send you the range of what's on offer now. We have a group of ambassadors. We had a really successful ambassadors evening a while ago, and we had people there from the college, from the university, from other bits of education, from the local television company, a load of voluntary groups who were all offering different things and saying we can do this, we can fundraise and all the rest of it, and doing something along that line would be really helpful. I'm sure all of you could do a bit of fundraising for us. At least we can have a decent Christmas lunch for them all. I'm sure some of you, like I did last year on Christmas Eve, I didn't want to go on Christmas Day, I will confess, went and I laid tables and I wrapped presents and I decorated the room. You know, and it was lovely actually. There were about 20 odd of us, and it was a really brilliant time, and I would recommend that sort of activity. If you're really sad and you're alone on Christmas Day, then I suggest you go along and volunteer and help, because you'll have a brilliant time. Where I went now? Oh, John. I've talked about the ambassadors, and you've talked about a lot of money being invested in children's services, which I was and have been very grateful for. But as I say, the transformation plan is working to bring some of the funding down, if you like. But there is a continuous, uncontrollable demand. For instance, last week, we had 605 children who were looked after. And by Friday, we had 615, because 2 sibling groups came into care on Friday. You know, and you can't say, oh, well, we haven't enough money for those 10, you know, we'll just... So it is a real continuous problem. I've written something here, and I don't know what it was you said. Single ward, single award, great. Where and several people have touched on it, the next step isn't to get outstanding for children's services. The next step is to get the care levers bit from requires improvement to be good out as it is. Outstanding is a really tricky thing, and when you look across the country, there aren't umpteen outstanding in every region, and I almost think there's a bit of limiting to how many are allowed. Just my personal view, but there we are. If we're good, and we're good at a really high level across everything, that's really satisfactory. The one thing I discovered when I took this on was the data sets in 2016 said we were great. All the data we got said everything's hunky-dory, which is why whoever's involved, whether it's scrutiny or the improvement board or whatever, or the lead member, needs to be looking underneath the data to say, does that match what we see on a bit of paper? And that's what scrutiny has done and is doing. You've got a list a mile long, haven't you now? And that's really invaluable, because I go and poke my nose in everywhere. Somebody else going to another bit helps me know that we've got it right. I can't do it on my own, and I won't be doing it forever anyway. Yeah, I've already said data sets, which is something you were talking about, Graham. Amanda talked about how bad things were in 2016, and they were. And the following thing, you know, staff did leave. They were disheartened, overworked, overburdened. And we had, when I took over, 70 agency staff as social workers. And the cost of that's phenomenal. But the worst cost of that is children and young people had no consistency, no one to build a relationship with. That isn't good social work and care for our children. We have none now. And that's the aim, to continue that. And I'd forgotten about the ad hoc scrutiny panel, so thank you for raising that. I'm nearly at an end as such. I'm glad Tyler's thanks to all the officers concerned, because it is the people who do the job are the ones we should be thanking and grateful for. And the next steps I've already addressed is to improve care leavers as such. As for the issue about knife crime and Dewsbury Support Centre, I was surprised with the deputation, because I've asked recently how many lockdowns there have been at schools in Kirklees. There was one in Murfield because there was a strange guy in the ground. And there was one at another school in Huddersfield because there were some youngsters riding round on bikes who shouldn't be there. I'm not aware of any others, but I may not have had that information. That's the best I can give you, folks. Thank you for your kind words, but save those kind words for the folks who are working so hard under a lot of pressure to keep our children's services as good as it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kendrick. That brings our key discussion item to an end. So I'm going to refer that we go back to the start of the agenda. I think we're on agenda item 10, which is the Council Budget Strategy for 25-26 and future years, reference from Cabinet. So can I call on Councillor Turner? You have a maximum of 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. As they say, follow that. Anyway, we'll have a go. As always with this report, a certain amount of the information is based on the best evidence and intelligence available to us at the time of writing. So some of the details contained in this report are assumptions of what we do know and what we expect to be the financial situation of Council in the coming years. It's well documented that the nation's finances are, shall we say, challenging, and this will of course continue to affect local government finances as we have to rely on government funding to support vital services. Challenges don't come from nowhere. Austerity took 40% of our government funding away. The cost of living crisis added more than 20 million to our costs, and demand for services have been rising for years. As Councillor Kendrick has just pointed out, Thursday 605, Friday 615, an increase of 10. So we are a demand-led organisation, so that's always a challenge for us. We've seen some councils go bankrupt, and 19 other local authorities, including some in our region, receive government bailouts to set a balanced budget for this year. So it's hardly a surprise or a secret that we face a challenging situation setting next year's budget and further financial challenges over the coming years. I've always tried to be open and honest with residents about the challenges we face. This year's medium-term financial strategy is no different. It sets out the scale of the challenges we face. We need to find around £30 million of savings to balance our budget next year. The MTFS describes how we're already driving those savings, freezing most of our recruitment, eliminating all sorts of spending and making very difficult decisions about some services and capital investments. But we do need to do more. We're facing extra costs from national and demographic pressures. Costs for helping people and families who are homeless, increased demand for social care for older people, and support, as we've heard today, for our young people in Kirklees who need our help the most. We don't need to balance the budget to satisfy accountants or make spreadsheets look pretty. We're doing it to safeguard all those services that rely on sustainable funding to serve the residents of Kirklees. Without balancing the budget, we would have faceless London bureaucrats making decisions on our behalf. We all know that they don't have a local person's interests at heart. More frontline services would be axed and charges for residents would increase. Now, unlike previous years where we'd have liked a multi-year settlement to allow us to plan longer term, along with many of our fellow councils, I am happy to go for a one-year settlement to allow the new government time to develop a fair funding scheme for future years, and we would then look to have a multi-year settlement to allow for better long-term planning. I've said this many times before, and no doubt I'll say it again. All we want here in Kirklees is a fair share of the money available. We're not greedy. It makes no sense for much wealthy parts of the country to be able to have a lower council tax than we do and still have a bigger budget, and nowhere near the same levels of deprivation and rising demand we face here in Kirklees. We are currently underfunded by around 18 million each year compared to councils with similar needs to us. A fair funding settlement will make a huge difference to bridging the current funding gap. We do face some financial challenges this year, as I pointed out as I presented at Cabinet at the last Cabinet meeting. We are looking at a potential overspend of circa £12 million this financial year. However, portfolio holders and officers are working hard to identify savings to enable us to reduce the predicted overspend this year. Looking further forward, as I said, we must deliver significant savings in future budgets against that rising tide of growing demand in many areas of the council. That's why a fair funding scheme is a necessity for us, as it will help deal with demand pressures we face from, as I say, rising homeless, SEND and ageing population. Of course, we're not the only council facing these challenges. Most councils have exactly the same issues, but many are better funded than we are. Through our MPs and the various organisations we are part of, we will continue to lobby government for a fair share of the money available for local government. We have a very experienced team of officers who will be working hard to bring forward budget proposals in the coming months so that Cabinet can produce a balanced budget for March's budget meeting. We are constantly monitoring our capital programme and are looking to rephase some projects, defer others, and if we need, we may have to stop some altogether in the short to medium term. However, it would be all too easy to paint a bleak picture looking at this report. I still believe that here in Kirklees we have a lot going for us. And we do have a bright future once the nation's finances are more robust, which hopefully will be reflected in extra funding for council services. There's still a lot going on, and by working with partners in the private sector, much more to come. We will see in the next few years 2 new state-of-the-art special schools built, which will enable us to look after more of our children with SEND and save us money on out-of-placement areas. In the longer term, it's the right thing to do, to look after our own children, as Councillor Kenneth's been very clear about. We must look after our own children. So let's stop sending them out of bed. Let's invest in that and bring them back home. Money invested in several of our small towns to help them become more vibrant and support the local economy, creating jobs for our residents. A new local plan is under development to enable us to ensure we have the land available for our successful businesses to grow and to attract new businesses, and also allocate land to help address the national housing crisis and end our 5-year land supply problems. Working with many of our partners, we will see growth in our social housing stock as we bring forward plans to develop sites that the council owns and can develop. These sites help meet the needs of our residents for decent rented social housing. We have the station to stadium investment zone already attracting significant interest from potential private investors. Money from the Levelling Up Fund will see investment across Kirklees. Dewsbury Arcade, a fantastic project bringing new life into an historic building at the very heart of Dewsbury. The new Health and Innovation building built by a world-renowned university. And of course, the TransPennine upgrade, connecting us to the 2 most important economic cities in the north. And there are many, many more examples of work in partnership with private sector, other organisations across the borough, bringing that investment, creating the jobs and driving the local economy. So yes, tough times, tough decisions to be made, But let's talk the borough up and not down, and look forward to a hopefully better future in the years to come. Finally, can I thank the officers, and there's a lot involved in developing these very detailed reports, for their work and time and effort into preparing today's report. Madam Mayor, I ask Council to accept this report before us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. I've got members that have pressed their button. Is it to comment on the strategy? Right, I need it to be seconded first before I come to comments. Is that all right? Okay. Is that seconded?
I'll second it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pattison. Are there any comments? Councillor Taylor.
I'm just incompetent. Apologies. At least you can't reach me and hit me as well. I'd just like to echo particularly Graham's last comments about the work that's gone into this by the officers. This is clearly a difficult thing to pull together, and we appreciate the work and effort that goes into this. I do have a couple of comments or observations on this, as you might well expect. One of my comments is when we look at the report and it talks about the challenges that we face and how we need to address those challenges either by bringing forward increased savings proposals or reducing the budget pressures. What it doesn't talk about is about looking for new sources of income. And I think that's an omission. And it worries me that we're not thinking in that way, but we do need to. So hopefully that will be taken on board. I am worried about the comments in 2.3 where it talks about the minimum working balance of reserves, with a suggestion that we may look again at whether the minimum balance, review the minimum balance to ensure it's the correct level. I would worry if there was any suggestion it could be reduced. And I would just remind members of the joyful tip at the bottom in Newsom, which cost us £1 million to clear up. Things like this can just suddenly appear from nowhere. So I know it's about managing our finances. We do need to think about there are these unexpected things that could come along. And actually, if we were thinking about, well, we can just take a little bit off here to make things balance, it's probably a very dangerous step to take down. We say in 2.4 that we've brought forward proposals which cease all but priority expenditure. I wish that were true. And I have on a number of occasions, and officers know, and I know that behind me know, they probably know the examples I'd quote, but I've brought forward numerous examples of where there is non-essential spend still occurring in this authority at a time when we're talking about, as we heard from residents earlier about the impact on their family that are in the care homes. We are making some really tough decisions, and yet we are spending money that is non-essential. Really, that needs cracking down on far more than it has to date. We're also not collecting all the money that's due to us. And officers will smile a little bit at this. I'm still waiting after 4 years for an invoice for £855 that my parish council has the money and it wants to pay. I have asked everybody I can in this damn authority, please can I have an invoice?
I'll do you one now.
And I still don't have an invoice. But seriously, Graham, I don't have an invoice after 4 years. And I keep asking and asking and asking, and I've so many officers I've asked, but nobody will give me an invoice. I want to pay this council some money, and nobody wants to take it off me. The other comment I would make is around planning. Graham quite rightly talked about the local plan coming forward and how we can make sure that there is adequate land for building the homes that we need, but also for helping our businesses to expand. I'm currently working on 10 planning applications in my ward where things have got stuck. And some of them are for, I think about 5 or 6 of them are actually businesses where they're wanting to improve, expand, and nothing's moving. 11 months in and the planning application still hasn't been determined. I know it's to do with capacity, but if we're serious about growth, we know that building more homes brings in more council tax revenue as well. So if we can't get on top of that, that's going to stymie our growth as well. But I'll keep it there because I appreciate you want me to keep it short because we have other people who want to speak. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Cahoot.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to say what a contrast between the very uplifting mood that we had moments ago when we were talking about the achievements of Councillor Kendrick. Everyone's high-fiving, everyone's happy. It's a fantastic mood in the chamber. And then that somewhat very suddenly becomes somber when we're talking about finances and the difficulties and austerity that we've been faced with, and how that's impacting people within our communities and the children. So I think it's very obvious and apparent that these things are interlinked, that finances and investing in the needs of children are interlinked. And if we're talking about the well-being of children, I think it's important to realize that the well-being of children, and you have to speculate to accumulate. You know, you have to invest in certain areas to then see the rewards and reap the benefits of that investment. And I think we can all agree that the well-being of children is often reflected by the well-being of their parents. And if the parents have a healthy mind and a healthy body, then they are able to better look after their children, they are better able to provide for their children, and then we're going to see better and healthier and more protected children within our communities. So I don't know if any of you have heard, I mean, fantastic job. Proud of all the achievements of Councillor Kendrick and all the support staff and the teams really pulled together to really achieve a fantastic result and turn this around. You know, it was so bad in 2016 and we've turned it around, and we're all high-fiving each other thinking, what a great, good job guys, good job, well done, yeah, good job. Everyone's complimenting each other. Brilliant, it is a good job, it is a team effort. But in all reality and in all truthfulness, we shouldn't have been there in the first place. We shouldn't have been there in the first place. Someone was sleeping on the job. Someone let it slip under the radar for it to get where it was. Fantastic job in turning it around. But we've got to be preemptive. We can't do fireman policing, put out a little fire here, put out a little fire here. We're scared now. We've got financially constrained. We're scared now of spending. Where are we going to spend? Well, we need to spend where it's needed, where it's going to help the mental and physical well-being of the parents and the children. You need to have access to affordable leisure activities. Not everybody can go to the village and drive to the other side of Leeds to posh, you know, sports centres and leisure facilities. We need access to local healthcare and physical well-being facilities. And we're talking about financial constraints. These things are interlinked. Let's not have fireman policing. Let's not wait 2-3 years later for this to become a desperate situation in Dewsbury where people are suffering with a lack of facilities. So let's speculate here. Let's invest a bit of money. Let's spend a little money, bit of money, and get this sports centre open again. Let's help these children. Let's help their parents. When I'm coaching children in my boxing club, I say to them in the first session, if any of you ever utilize these skills that I teach you in boxing and abuse them by bullying people or by participating in crime, you'll be out of this gym before you can say I'm sorry. I don't wait for them to do it. I tell them on the first day, we can't have fireman policing and try to put out fires. Let's prevent this. Let's help the Dewsbury Sports Centre. Let's spend some of that money. We can find that money for that sports centre. And I know there's financial constraints. I know there's austerity. We know about all of that. And it's fantastic how everyone's worked together and it's been a great team effort. We want to do that. We're all here to work together. Anything we can do, we're here. And we're here to help. Let's do this. A fantastic job to everyone that's been involved. Let's carry on and build from here and provide for the people of Dewsbury and Batley that need that sports centre, that need that swimming baths. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Councillor Cahoot. Councillor John Lawson, please.
Thank you, Matt. I'll begin as well by saying thank you to the officers who brought this forward and are working year-round to develop and monitor council finances. It's fair to say that years of defunding of local government have taken away much of our ability to be as financially self-steering as we would like. and that all current council strategies lie at the tender mercies now of our new Labour government. I can hear Conservative members saying that it's the same for all councils. Not so much. Kirklees has consistently found itself at the bottom of the pecking order when it comes to how funding is allocated. And those that are the same, those few that are the same as us, face exactly the same struggles as us and are, not to put too fine a word on it, as desperate as us. What will change under Labour? Well, we'll find out the next autumn budget. Will we see multi-year settlements? The mood music is good, and that would help. Will a fair funding plan come forward, finally? Are we going to see adult social care put back on the right track? And will we see levelling up funding brought back online? Don't hold your breath, is what I would say to you. The tanker will take a long time to turn around, and in the meantime we have a budget strategy now which has some of the hallmarks of the same medicine of March's budget. The decisions made last municipal year are stacking up now in the form of rethinks and rollbacks, campaigns and call-ins. We have the recent HWRC call-in, Cleckheaton Town Hall mothballed, car parking reviewed, post-16 transport appeals are starting to come through. The Dewsbury Leisure Centre is still awaiting some kind of resolution. Who knows how that's going to work out, but it's unthinkable that a town the size of Dewsbury should have no leisure support and leisure facilities available to them. But why are these things stacking up? Well, there's a reason. And the reason for this is the administration, successive administrations, has not taken the public with them on their decision-making journey. Unless you engage service users and members in a meaningful way at the beginning of the decision-making process, we will be doomed to be locked into this turgid stalemate with residents for the foreseeable future. It will turn into a war of attrition, and that the council is ill-prepared to fight. Each line in the budget is someone's life, how they live, how they grow up, how they keep their heads above water. When you change that, you need to give plenty of advance warning. You need to mitigate the impacts and help people prepare for change if that change really must happen. Again, we've got to do budget with people, not to them. Clear is about the kindest you can be right now, and we still don't have, after a year of asking, an idea of what's going to be left after the dust has settled. What's going to be left in 26 and 27 in terms of services that people can rely and depend on and not think they're here today, but are they gone tomorrow? Finally, I asked the new leader, Councillor Patterson, at the last council if there had been conversations with the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. Councillor Patterson said that there had. Could we please have some idea of the results of those conversations? Is the cavalry coming? Are you asking for money, and are you getting positive responses? And I think we're all desperate to know that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Councillor Cooper, please.
I've seen a number of budgets come to this council, and not any in recent years have come up with a magic solution which is going to resolve our financial problems, and people go, crikey, if only we'd have thought of it. And the reason for that is because there is no answer. There's no answer within this council chamber that we can provide which will solve those problems. I hear about efficiencies, I hear about invoices which could have been sent, and these things are all true, but they're not going to solve the problem. They divert us from the problem. They divert us and pretend that it's something fundamental about Kirklees that's and special about Kirklees, which is the issue. It isn't. The real issue is that what we knew right through the election, that there was a funding gap for public services of billions. Both parties who were potential governments knew about it but chose to ignore it because it was convenient for them to do so. They dodged the issue. And now it's somehow a surprise that we've got a huge funding gap for local government. It's not a surprise. Never was a surprise. So, what are we doing as a council? Well, we are not safeguarding services. I'm sorry, Councillor Turner, that's not actually what's happening. That's maybe what you say what's happening, But actually what we're doing as a council is all that we can do, which is managing decline. We're managing decline because we have sports centres which we can't open. We have town halls which are closed. We have care homes who've got dubious futures. That is not safeguarding services, that is managing decline. And we've got to, if we've got to start to tackle these problems, we've got to face the reality of where we're at, and we've got to actually go to government and say, this is your austerity now. This is your austerity. It's up to you to actually change that. Fair funding. Fair funding would be great. And I'm a big advocate for it. I don't see why some London boroughs get far more money than Kirklees does. There's some huge disparities. But even if we sorted out fair funding, the pie for local government and public services is far too small. It needs to be bigger. We need to have a greater investment in public services by national government to enable us to have the society that we deserve as one of the 5th richest economies in the world. If we're one of the richest countries in the world, where is it? Where's the money? Where's the money that we need to provide the services that the people deserve? And we need a wealth tax. We need to make sure that the people who've got the most, pay the most, because we all benefit, no matter how rich you are, from living in a more equal society with good services. And that mindset has got to be something that we get out there and drives our policies and drives the way where we go forward. A 1% levy on assets over 10 million and a 2% levy on assets over 1 billion would realise 50 to 70 billion pounds worth of additional money for public services. That would be a real tangible difference which would give us a shift in our approach to the services that we're able to offer. And we would not be managing decline. We would be providing the services that people deserve. And so if we are going to see a real change from the Tories, we've got to see a change of philosophy. We've got to see a change of approach. The new government, the new Labour government, should not be put in a position where we are simply managing decline. That has got to end. We now need to go to a sustainable future where we can give people the services that they deserve and will provide a more equal society.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Councillor David Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, just to bring us back to the issue that actually we're meant to be debating rather than the flights of fancy of Andrew Cooper's imagination, I have some points to be made on this particular report on two topics. The first is actually the sale of assets, because it does refer in here on page 87, paragraph 2.4, accelerating the sale of assets. This does need to happen. We have some support for this. I want to give you an example, though, where this is just not happening at any pace at all. And that is two former school sites in my ward. One is the old Gumbsall First School, which has been hasn't been occupied for about 10 years. The other is the RM Grill School, which was up at Windybank, which I think hasn't been occupied for about 17 years. These pieces of land are still there. They have been designated for housing. We were told, first of all, that they would go on the market. They were then pulled off the market. No, we're going to build houses. We're going to build our council houses on it. We were then told, oh, we're not going to build council houses anymore. We're going to have a word with Homes England and see what they can do with it. I've now been told that those talks haven't gone anywhere with Homes England. It's come back to the council again for disposal. This has all taken an inordinate amount of time. And what we do not have at the moment, when we are faced with such huge financial pressures, is an awful lot of time. We can't be delaying these things by 3, 4, 5 years while we work. Oh, we might get a few quid more if we do it this way, or we might get a bit of. We've got to start really working at a pace. We need the money, and we need the houses as well. Let's not beat about the bush. You know, we need housing as well. So there's a brilliant solution to this. Get them flogged off. Sell them to a developer who will put houses on, and they will put starter homes on, which we're pushing for. And we can all benefit from it. But I'm afraid somewhere in the system there is a huge blockage which is holding this up. I will leave you to see if you can find what it is. The second thing about housing is the issue, if you look at the HRA figures on page 100, it does seem to me, when you look at the expenditure, we're spending, revenue expenditure, £112 million a year from the HRA. That's the revenue expenditure. And we've about 23,000 council houses. So when you add that lot up, we are spending £5,000 per council house on managing those. Now remember, that is not the cost of putting a new bathroom in it. It's not the cost of putting a new roof on. This is just ongoing revenue cost of managing those houses. I think for that money we could do a lot more, and I think the tenants deserve a lot more for the money that we put into that. I'd love to see them get a much better service, and I think we ought to be looking very hard at how that HRA is spent. And my third point really is about the assumptions that we make. And I'd like you, if you've got a copy in front of you, if you look at page 97, there's a table at the top of page 97, which is called scenario analysis, which is a posh name for what we think is going to happen. And it shows you there where the gap is going to be in the next few years between what we think we're going to get in and what we're going to spend. And what really hit me when I saw that was how very, very much closer the base position is to the best case than it is to the worst case. It's not halfway between. It's very much more towards the best case. And that worried me a little. Look at year 5 there. The base position that we're assuming is a 40 million gap. But look at the best case, 38 million. Look at the worst case, 78 million. Now, we do this every year. We always seem to come a cropper, because no matter how we set the budget, we think, oh, that's done it. We get to the next year, oh, by the way, there's a 30 million budget gap, or there's a 35 million budget gap. We don't seem to learn somehow that the way we do budgets doesn't work very well. And so I wonder whether we ought to give some thought. Again, we'll send this back to the Cabinet, I hope, for a little bit of thought about how we set these assumptions and whether there is a tendency to go for the best assumption because it makes the figures better rather than the most realistic assumption. So perhaps we might get some answers on that at some point. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Yusra Hussain, please.
And thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just very concerned about the financial mismanagement of this administration, and I just want to, I'd like to know, and I'd like them to explain how they've reached an overspend of 80 million. You might laugh, but it's not a joke for Kirklees residents. We reached an overspend of 80 million for 24-25 financial year and a funding gap of 29.3 million for 25-26 financial year. So to balance the budget, we've got compromise in Batley Library, we've compromised DSC, which is Dewsbury Sports Centre, we've compromised the Customer Service Centre and the Registrar Office. Given that we have a cabinet that is Huddersfield-centric, it appears the North is being severely neglected. As for lobbying the government, prior to coming into government, Chancellor Rachel Reeves said they would not be supporting councils who have gone into administration. So what guarantees can this Labour administration give that they will be given the monies to support the funding gap that their decisions have currently caused? But I fear the residents of Kirklees will pay the price for this mismanagement of Labour administration.
Thank you, Councillor Hussain. Councillor Hanifa Darwan.
Hi. The cost of living crisis has a significant negative impact on all communities, including charitable organisations, and its impacts on their vital services, and it is impacting on businesses. Unfortunately, the cost of living crisis is also having an impact on people's mental health and well-being, so I hope everyone can see the necessity of having a Dewsbury Sports Centre. It is sad to watch necessary services struggling due to cuts in their funding. People's lives are affected. Our government simply inform us that they do not have the funds available. This is rather ironic. When it comes to funding illegal wars, money is readily available. $1 trillion war with Iraq, hundreds of thousands dead, and 0 weapons of mass destruction. 8.2 billion, the total audited cost of UK operations in Iraq since 2003, and this was according to an audit carried out by the Ministry of Defence in January 2015. The point that I'm making is that it is absolutely vital to lobby the central government. Getting council tax off people and increasing the council tax is simply not enough. The money has to be generated from a larger source. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Darvan. Councillor Darren O'Donovan, please.
Gosh, we don't have long left, do we? I'm going to have to jump straight in. It's entirely inappropriate and misleading, given it's never happened before, to accuse any group running this council of misspending any money, when clearly there's no evidence of that. And it has to be put on record that there's no evidence of that. And it shouldn't be suggested by any group. And it's funny that that's never been suggested by any group in the 14 years that I've been here, other than this year, from what I've just heard. And I'm not sure why. But it's entirely misleading to be saying that kind of thing. What you can see when you read the documents in front of you is that we made huge increases in spending in adult social care, huge increases in spending in children's services. You can't have good Ofsted ratings in children's care homes and in children's services and adult social care without that investment that we've prioritised as a Labour group over the years. It just wouldn't have existed. And there has to be casualties of that, doesn't there? The money is what we have. There's been no new money. There's been the occasional money from government for some highways, for adult social care a little bit, but the lion's share of what we've had to raise through adult social care has come from the adult social care precept. There's never been any real new money. Over 200 million cut in the last 14 years. We're still seeing the effects of that. We've got cost pressures in children's services again that we really, really need to meet. And everybody in the chamber a few minutes ago seemed to suggest and agree that yes, we're corporate parents, we have to prioritise that. Well, do you know what? We really do have to prioritise that. And we need to make difficult decisions. Not just this Labour group, but every member in this chamber. If you're a corporate parent, then make some difficult decisions with us about children's services. Let's make sure the money's there in this budget come February to make sure we've got the money to do it. Let's not be parochial. Listen, I used to work at Shrewsbury Sports Centre, and I know people from there. Nothing would please me more than somebody from Sport England or Swimming England to give us the money to reopen that sports centre. And if there were money somewhere under a rug or behind a sofa, we would know about it. Every member in this group wants to see that sports centre open again. Unless somebody's got some money to do it, it's going to be almost impossible for it to happen. I'm not sure where the new income streams are. I'm not sure where the non-essential spend is. I'm not sure this money that we're not collecting, where it is and what it amounts to. But we've looked at this over 14 years, and none of it has ever amounted to the sufficient amount to cover the cuts that we've had to shoulder. Even the rises in council tax that we've gone to the public for the last 11 years hasn't been enough to plug the gap. We don't want to have to go back to the public for greater council tax rises than we've already done, but over the last few years that's been our only option, and it's still not enough to plug the gap. So I think people need to read the papers in detail, be open and honest with the public about the budget position that we're in, and the difficult decisions that this group has to make. Nobody else has to make them. This group has to make them. Whichever group was in this place, they'd have to make the same difficult decisions. Somebody has to make them. And they're not nice, they're not palatable, but we have to do it. So please read your papers really carefully, be open and honest with the public, and let's get realistic for February's budget.
Thank you, Councillor Darren O'Donovan. I'm now going to close the list there because I'm conscious of time. We need to go to the right of reply to Councillor Turner, and then we also need to take a vote on this, and we've got less than 8 minutes to go. So, Councillor Turner.
Madam Mayor, thank you. We're not going to get doing this in 8 minutes, so I'm going to pick some things out and just try and cover off as many things as I can. John, minimum level of balances, it's one of those, we discuss this every year, it's what I'm comfortable with, what the Section 151 officer is, and I've probably said this to you many times, I am a devout Yorkshireman, got deep pockets and very short arms, so I like to have a level of reserves that I feel comfortable with, and we will maintain that. We're never going to get to a position where our reserves could leave us home to Section 114, so I can assure you on that. Planning, you're absolutely right, John. Planning, we have issues in planning. No doubt, absolutely everybody in this room has probably had issues with planning. The problem is there's a national shortage of planning officers. We've tried to recruit, like every other local authority. We were the first authority in West Yorkshire to pay a premium to planning officers, and my colleague in Wakefield, I'm not going to use the exact words we used when I rung him up, but he wasn't happy with me because we poached several people from Wakefield because we were paying more. It's a buyer's market, unfortunately, and it can't get into an arms war of paying more than everybody else. So we do recruit as much as we can, we promote internally as much as we can, but it's a national issue, which was recognised by the government when they said they were going to try and provide money to try and persuade people to come back from retirement back into the planning system. So yes, it's an issue, we're aware of it, it does cost us money, it's frustrating for the public, but we are doing all we can, but we can't have we haven't found the cupboard full of planning officers yet. When we do, we'll get them out there. Somebody mentioned about lack of investment in our children. Perhaps they didn't listen or they haven't read the papers. There is massive investment in our young people. We are building 2 state-of-the-art special schools. That is a massive investment at a time when the finances are under pressure. We recognise the need for investment in our children's services, and that's a massive investment going forward. And those are both progressing nicely and are on track the last time I checked. So that's a real investment in our young people. Somebody commented the Labour budget. Well, I don't know. I'll have to wait till October like you. I mean, Keir hasn't rung me this week, and I don't know what'll happen at the conference next week. Let's hope that there are some rabbits that Rachel can pull out of her hat. But I've been doing a bit of researching just to make sure that, you know, I'm a bit of a cynic, that the nation's finances aren't as great as they could be. So at this moment in time, as of yesterday, GDP is 97% debt to GDP. That's very high. So we've only got 3% there. The debt is rising. The national debt rises at £7,051 per second. And that current debt is we pay back in interest £73.8 billion in interest. That's 7.3% of government public spending. So if we can get the finances on track, we can get that interest payments down, you can see it doesn't take a lot of interest payments reduction to allow significant amounts of money to be passed in the public sector. We need to get that down. Each and every single taxpayer in this country owes somebody somewhere, probably an American bank or possibly in some of the Cayman Islands, £84,000. That's the state of the nation's finances. All taxpayers owe someone £84,000. So it's only right that the government gets the finances back on track, and then once that's sorted out, they will find the money, I'm absolutely sure, for a fair funding scheme and investment in public services. And given it's nearly 9 o'clock, I'm leaving it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. We'll now go to the vote. I'm going to ask that we use our consoles for the vote. Thank you. Okay, that report is carried. Agenda item 11. It's 8:59. I don't think we're going to have time. Councillor.
Madam Mayor, not agenda item 11, but agenda item 12 is a very quick, short report just from Corporate Governance and Audit asking permission if we can go ahead with recruiting a second independent member. This has been debated at Corporate Governance and Audit. I'm hoping we can just vote on it, and just so we can get on with the process of recruiting somebody, if people are happy with that.
Can somebody second that? Councillor Homewood? Yeah.
Sure.
We'll go straight to the vote by a show of hands. All for? Yeah.
Agreed.
Agreed. That's carried. Thank you. That takes us nicely to 9 p.m. I'm going to close the meeting here. Thank you for your cooperation. I shall see you at the next one. Good night, everyone.